Test 1 2. Check. Check 1. Check 1 2. Test. Check 1 2. Check.
we're just waiting for 2 board members to come from the restroom, so we'll be with you in a
We don't have a
second.
quorum yet, so as soon as one of them returns, we will begin. Thank you, everyone, for your patience, and we apologize for being tardy this evening. We had a robust executive session agenda.
Madam President, can I say something in advance?
About,
I just want to acknowledge that I have a back problem, so that the
So
board and people
noted.
in the audience understand I may be getting up and walking. It's not meant as disrespect. And if I lay down, it means my back is really dry.
so noted, Board Member Birch. You're welcome.
Sorry, can you speak louder? I can't hear.
I have back trouble, so I may be walking around.
Speak into your
That's-
microphone, Board Member Birch.
Sorry.
It really does amplify the voice.
Yes, ma'am.
You start one. You. Okay, great. I'd like to move that the board commences with the public meeting session. Have a motion for that, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please. Board Secretary Shower.
Ms. Bursch,
Present?
Mr. Carlson, Ms. Franco Herman, Ms. Harris, here, Mr. Speck,
Present.
Ms. Spina, present, Mr. Todd, Ms. Spence Wallace.
Present, thank you. Everyone, please rise for the flag salute. You may be seated. So on behalf of all the board members, Superintendent McLaughlin and her cabinet, we welcome you to our Tuesday, August 23rd, 2023. August 23rd, 2022, putting us a year ahead. Public meeting session. And as an opening statement this evening as well. So, it is the board's duty to report the basic idea that by virtue of our common humanity, no matter where we come from or what we look like, we are all born equal, touched by the grace of God. Every person has worth. Every person matters. Every person deserves to be treated with decency and respect. Sadly, throughout much of our history, mankind did not see this. Dignity was seen as a virtue reserved to those of rank and privilege, kings and elders. It took a revolution of the spirit over many centuries to open our eyes to the dignity of every person. And around the world, generations have struggled to put this idea into practice in our laws and in our institutions. The Montgomery Township Public School District is a public education institution that historically and currently operates with integrity and with excellence, not without challenge or controversy. We will continue to do so. As a community, we will be respectful and polite, even in our disagreement. We will value your perspectives, even in disagreement. Our curriculum and lessons rely on state standards and legislation, as well as fact and research. We are committed to implementing a high-quality, developmentally appropriate, equitable education for all of our students, so they receive, and as inspired by a Monty for Justice student 2 years ago, a complete education. In the event a community member's behavior or rhetoric is vulgar or offensive or profane or name-calling is promulgated, the board and or the chair, which is the board president, will immediately interrupt by announcing a point of order. In the event the noise level prevents the board from hearing the proceedings, a personal privilege will be assessed. Should any audience members' conduct continue to be disruptive, preventing the board from facilitating our procedures of this public meeting, we will immediately recess, resulting in the district's director of security and/or law enforcement to enforce our public meeting conduct rules. If the disruptive behavior persists, the individual or individuals will be removed from the public meeting and/or the chair will adjourn the meeting. Finally, it has been the case where it has been reported to the board that video recording has taken place at our public meetings. And this is permitted as long as students aren't video recorded and the recording isn't disruptive to the government. Time in our agenda where we will turn.
The district has worked hard all summer preparing to welcome our students back in 2 weeks on September 6th. I have a couple of reminders. Please, parents, fill in all of the required documents in Genesis in order for your students to get their class schedules and or their class assignments. Also, if you have moved or if you have any transportation needs, please make sure, or health and medical needs, that you contact the school as soon as possible so there can be a very quick resolve to any issues that might occur. We also kindly ask your patience the first days for the older grades and weeks for the younger grades. As students become familiar with dismissal procedures and bus drivers become familiar with students taking attendance, it takes a little longer the first couple of weeks of school. So we ask for your patience with that. We are welcoming our staff back September 1st, which is next week, and we are excited to welcome them back with convocation, followed with some professional development prior to the long weekend, and then the kids come back. So I wish you all a great, safe, and healthy end of the summer. And I would now like to introduce our Director of Instruction, Curriculum Instruction and Staff Development, Ms. Fiona Borland, who is presenting tonight on our health curriculum.
I could put the book down, right?
I see students of all ages tonight. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that I am presenting the scope and sequence of the K-12 health curriculum, and will be sharing content that will be present in the K-12 curriculum. So just
Okay. So hi, good evening. I am here tonight to talk about the process of developing a comprehensive health curriculum aligned with the New Jersey student learning standards that we are required to implement this fall as a school district. So I really want to start by just first presenting that health is known as a comprehensive health curriculum. And so it is going to cover many subjects. You're going to see information about the importance of remaining physically active. We do a lot of substance abuse, human development, safety on many levels. I'm going to go through a lot of details tonight. Mental health, these are all important elements of a comprehensive health curriculum that will spiral all the way through 1st through 12th grade. It is also important that a health curriculum normalize human development, that we create a safe environment for students to learn to ask questions that will keep them safe and healthy. And also to affirm all individuals in the classroom, the school, and our community. So these are really the goals of our comprehensive health curriculum. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the timeline and what's been going on and how we got to tonight. So in June of 2020, the standards were released. I'd like you to all put yourself in June of 2020 to remember what was going on. So it was not until the spring of 2021 that we had our first department meetings to really talk with the health and PE teachers about what the new standards were and to introduce them and to start what's called unpacking them as a department and looking at what was new. In the summer of 2021, we also had our first departmental trainings where we really dug into the standards, the new way that they were grouped, any new content, and began talking about what it would look like to implement these standards a year later. In the fall of 2021, I was part of hosting a county training with the Somerset County Department of Education, myself along with the curriculum directors from Somerville and Warren. We led a day in which our own Montgomery health teachers came, and over about 60 health teachers across the county came and shared resources, shared concerns, talked about their plans, and really collaborated on what it would look like to implement this new collection of standards. In February of this past school year, we had training on sexual orientation and gender identity, specifically inclusive language, also just to inform ourselves of information and facts and knowledge so that we would know more. And then in the afternoon, we spent a lot of time talking about standards that might have moved or shifted, and that's considered grade band articulation. You know, the way our schools are set up, we've got our K2, our 3-4, our 5-6. It's wonderful to get everybody in a room on a professional learning day and get everybody talking to each other about which grade levels are going to take what content. It was actually a really fun and exciting day. That brought us to the spring of 2022 and an audit and update. In that process, it's when you say, okay, what is the health curriculum that we already have in place, and what new standards does it already meet? So this is not a radically new health curriculum. I'll be saying that multiple times tonight. And so we say, okay, so this is what we already have in the health curriculum, and these are the new standards that cover that. After you do that process, then you have to say, so what are you not covering? What is in the new health standards that needs to be peppered through the new health curriculum? And so we spent the summer finalizing the standards, identifying lesson topics, selecting resources that best match the standards as they will be taught by Montgomery Township. And then this fall is a full implementation of the New Jersey Student Learning Standards 2020 across 7 different disciplines, not just health and PE. So what's new? I just shared that a lot of this is not new, but there are a few new things to pay attention to. The first is shifting grade levels. So some topics that may have been in 5th grade are now in 4th grade, and topics that may have been in 9th grade are now in 8th grade. And so one of the rationale for that is that best practice from national organizations, both in health and in wellness, talk about making sure that students have information on puberty before puberty onset so that children know what to expect. And it also helps that ensure that students have agency over their own bodies so that they can keep themselves safe from being pressured, from dating violence, and from assault or abuse. It is important that we provide appropriate language to our students, that we discuss specific acts, empowering them to stay safe, to evaluate risks, and to make informed decisions so that they are able to communicate their needs around important health issues. The second thing that is absolutely new is new legislation. Now, content gets into curriculum in two different ways. The State Board of Education creates and adopts curriculum, and that creates learning standards. But the state assembly or the state legislation can also pass legislation that then requires that we put things into our classes. And so the following 5 legislations were passed since 2014. There are other legislations that are included in the health standards, but these are the new ones. So consent, mental health, the Safe Haven Act, sexting, and the Sexual Abuse, Assault, Awareness, and Prevention Education Act. And the third new thing in the standards is that these standards are far more inclusive. And so we know that the statistics tell us that most LGBTQIA+ students in New Jersey have experienced some anti-LGBTQ victimization at schools, and many of these students do not have the resources to access in-school resources and supports. And it is also our goal, and the goal of these standards, to make schools a more inclusive place for LGBTQ youth, to reduce bullying, to reduce depression, suicidal ideations and attempts, marijuana and alcohol consumption, and absences. And when we do that for one population, it benefits all. When you create a safe space, all students know that you are creating a safe space. It creates an increase in GPA and student success across all subgroups. So a couple important clarifications. I'm going to take this moment to let everybody know in the audience that I have been in the audience since April. So I have been in every board meeting, and your feedback, your comments have not gone unheard. I have been taking notes, and I've been guiding the curriculum writing process, and that was all, I have been there doing that, and that's why some of these questions I just want to clarify are things that have come up over the last couple of months. Who's teaching health? Montgomery Township teachers will be teaching all of the health classes. They are certified health and PE teachers. Who wrote the curriculum? Montgomery Township health teachers. In collaboration with myself as the director of curriculum, we have written the entire curriculum. And how can we be sure they are teaching it? Teachers follow curriculum documents. If the purpose of curriculum documents, what is in the curriculum documents makes it into the classroom, and what is not in the curriculum documents doesn't. So curriculum documents guides teachers' lesson planning and instructional development. So, locating the district curriculum. Our district curriculum is always public. From the main website, you go to the Assessment, Curriculum, and Instruction tab. You scroll down to Curriculum. That'll take you to a home page that says, click this link to go to our public curriculum documents. When you get there, it'll say, click over here to browse the curriculum, because there are hundreds of courses, grades K through 2, that you need to sort. And I recommend, what you can't see on that last picture is it's a collection of hierarchy of database. You just drop down menus and searching. Search by subject area, pick physical education and health, and that will take you to all of the health standards, and actually all of the health and PE curriculum will be available for you to read. So talking a little bit about what you will find when you get to those documents. Okay, standards. They are developed and adopted by the New Jersey Department of Education, and educational code says that school districts are obligated to implement them. So adopted and created at the state level, local school districts implement them. Now, in our curriculum template, we have boxes called content and skills. Those are developed specifically by the MTSD health teachers to align with the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, but they're our interpretation. So when you read something in the standards, you want to go down to the content and the skills box, because that's going to give you the clear explanation of what did we say is going to end up in the classroom based on our interpretation of that standard. That is the discretion that local districts have, and we took it. And then unit resources. Now I want to be clear on this. Some of the units have unit resources, some of the units don't. Because in every unit, we don't use a YouTube video or a particular book. Teachers create PowerPoints, lesson plans, learning activities all the time that aren't something that we would link as a specific resource. So your guide to what is in the classroom is the content of the skills. When there are unit resources, I encourage you to explore them. The unit resources are guides to the types of resources that they are resources that will be used by teachers. And if teachers, we are encouraging teachers to stick to the curriculum as it is written, and they will stick to the curriculum as it is written. If there's something else that is found, it will be measured against the resources that have already been identified. So exactly interpreting what you think I'm saying, we want to make sure that the message is consistent and age appropriate across all the grade levels. So I just want to clear this up, where we're going to help you find this in the curriculum documents. When you first click on, this is actually 4th grade, I believe. When you click on Health Grade 4, the first is the top box that'll show up. And those are all your unit titles. So you'll say, oh, okay, these are the different units. There's a family life, there's a safety, there's a nutrition. Okay, I click on the nutrition and fitness label, and I'm going to get this long list of standards, and you can read them, and you should read them. But you really want to get to the content and skills box to identify what is my student actually going to learn and know how to do when they finish 4th grade health class. Another concept that you'll see tonight, because I'll sound like I'm repeating myself, but it's actually called spiral curriculum. So the concept of a spiral curriculum is that students will see the same topics throughout their school career, but at each level they will experience an increase in complexity. This is very easily explained in language arts. So in language arts, you start talking about characters in kindergarten. What did that character do? But in 12th grade, you're still talking about character analysis. And it doesn't change, and you're going to see that in the health curriculum. Topics will spiral, they will repeat, they're talked about over and over again at a rising level of complexity. So I said to you that most of this is not new. So these are some of the changes. I'm not, just to do this piece quickly, because there's a lot to get through tonight. There were 5 bands, they've gone down to 4. There were 6 standards, they got compressed to 3. The interesting thing, though, that I will share is that a lot of the content was actually still being taught in classes, so that when you look under wellness, there might have been a single standard about wellness, and now in the 2020 standards, in the 2.1, they have done a better job of fleshing out what mental health really looks like and what should those learning objectives be. And so they've gotten more detailed in this. So this is a side-by-side comparison of just what this organizational structure has changed. All right, now we're here. So bear with me. We're on for a ride. We're going to go from grade 1 to grade 12. We started grade 1, as you know, that our kindergarten program is currently a half-day program, but I hope that you're all learning about the benefits of a full-day kindergarten program and thinking about that. I'm going to come out and share your opinion in November. So right now, our true health curriculum starts in 1st grade. There are 3 units that your 1st grader will experience: keeping myself safe, friendships and families, and healthy habits. Every book or resource that I have in the presentation tonight can be found in the curriculum, and also I believe every one of the books is available on YouTube, and you can find a star reading it or the author reading it, so please feel free to go home and locate these. As you all know, this presentation will be posted on the website along with me, this will be available for you to see. In this unit, we will use Todd Parr's The Family Book. The Family Book is written for students ages 3 to 8, and it is a very simple book about how families are all different. Some of the key ideas in 1st grade. In 1st grade, we learn a lot about managing emotions. It's hard to be a 1st grader. Developing some self-control, being responsible, looking for our community helpers, who are our trusted adults. We also talk about, through the lens of safety, safe and unsafe touches and how to communicate when you are not safe. You will notice a trend all through health curriculum is about safety and wellness. We learn that families are all different, but that in their differences they share many of the same characteristics. And I know that the question of reproduction has come up, and seeing the word reproduction in the K2 standards band has caused lots of questions, or has brought up lots of questions. In first grade and in second grade, reproduction is about families. Parents have children. Bears have cubs, ducks have ducklings, parents have children. That is reproduction at the first grade level. Okay, grade 2, nutrition and fitness, good drugs, bad drugs, and again, understanding myself and others. Healthy eating habits, importance of physical movement. I'm going to do key highlights so that I'm not just reading my slides to you. In second grade, and I really do want you to pay attention throughout the whole presentation of the spiral of the substance abuse curriculum. It's another very important key element of health. In second grade, we start talking about medicine. What is medicine? How do you use it safely? How do you not take medicine when your grown-up is not with you? That's second grade substance abuse. We will learn in second grade that the body has many parts, and students will learn all of the names of their outside body parts. What we do plan to do, it's the first time that we have this standard, is that we are going to separate our students with female bodies and have them be together when they're learning this lesson, and all of our students with male bodies. They will learn the parts of the outside body parts of both male and female bodies, but we are doing it just a little separately for the level of age appropriateness and the ability to ask questions and the comfort level of that. It is incredibly, this is through the lens of safety. It is incredibly important that young children have anatomically correct names to be able to report injury or abuse. It is just outside body parts, and the images used are illustrations of young children. So it is definitely meant to be a graphic that is very age appropriate for a 6-year-old to see, and at the same time anatomically correct. When we come to stereotyping in second grade, what we learn about stereotypes and the harm of gender stereotypes is that jobs, clothing, hairstyles, accessories, personal interests, none of these things have gender, and we should celebrate each other for our uniqueness. And students will also continue to learn to express their need for boundaries and how to get help when those boundaries are not respected. Okay, some things to look at. Catching the Moon is a fabulous picture book about a young girl who wants to play baseball. Not softball, baseball. And it is a wonderful story, and it is definitely about gender stereotypes and how hobbies do not have a gender. Morris Micklewhite and the Tangerine Dress is about a young boy who loves his orange dress. He is a young boy, he wants to play with the boys in school, the boys tease him because he likes how his dress swishes and he likes the sound of it and he likes wearing it, and it is a beautiful story about bullying and friendship and how we can like each other and accept each other regardless of our own personal preferences and how we express ourselves to the outside world. The Todd Parr book, Be Who You Are, is just also a celebration of each individual's uniqueness. These are books that will be part of the second grade curriculum. In grade 3 and 4, you're going to see a really tight level of this spiraling, almost the exact same topic, the unit names. These are what I'm considering the unit names. That's going to be important information for you later on. But you're going to see a definite step up complexity between grades 3 and grades 4. So personal mental health, family life, safety and injury protection, nutrition, fitness, drug prevention, disease prevention, and growth and development. Okay, so what do we do in third grade? Once again, we spiral up and talk about that there are different kinds of families. They come in different shapes, different sizes, but at the same time we go back to what's the same, the positive interactions in our families and how to foster positive communication skills. We continue to celebrate the uniqueness of our friends, especially through the lens of self-esteem. We also include food allergies in this unit and communicable and non-communicable diseases, very important, especially in the world that we are currently living in. We do talk about emergency situations and always continuing to how to find those helpers in the community. Who are our helpers? How do we find them? Okay, so the Great Big Book of Families is definitely 2 steps up of the Todd Parr book. So the Great Big Book of Families doesn't just say, hey, we have different families. It says, hey, there are all sorts of different families. Some families have two dads, some families have 1 mom, some families are run by a grandma, some families are run by an aunt. Sometimes children are adopted, sometimes children are fostered. Some families go on fancy vacations, some families go on day trips. Some families do everything. So this is a very comprehensive, the Great Big Book of Families, and like I said, you can find it on YouTube and play the Great Big Book of Families book. In addition, one of the additional resources is I'm Gonna Like Me, and it is really, again, about celebrating and being comfortable and confident in the uniqueness that you bring to the table as a third grader. Same units, you may read them twice, but different topics. So feelings are a big part of health curriculum. You've seen that word a couple times, being able to express a wide range. When you're little, you might learn that you're angry, but when you're older, you begin to learn that that might actually be frustration or hurt. So feelings are a really important part of our health curriculum and being a healthy human. Gender stereotypes are explained again, how they can be harmful. We talk about developing positive relationships, always the purpose to reduce bullying, more emergency safety, and now we move into, well, there are medicine and there are drugs. There are drugs that are illegal that people shouldn't use, and we also talk about poison safety. And then, as you remember, third grade was communicable and non-communicable diseases. Fourth grade gets into childhood diseases, immune system, healthy choices, healthy environment. What does a person need to grow up healthy? Some more books. My Shadow is Purple is a great book about a young boy who shows up and doesn't want to exist in one world or the other. He wants to play with the boys and he wants to play with the girls. And he is frustrated because he feels like he has to choose. And it's a great book that actually throughout the book, he begins to learn that other people have other experiences and celebrate their own differences in different ways as well. So My Shadow is Purple is a resource for fourth grade. Gender stereotypes being debunked by our Hidden Figures story, the women of NASA and the space race, and the incredible story. I just happen to be a huge fan of this story. And really battling again that they were women, they were mathematicians, they were scientists, they were literally rocket scientists. How cool is that? Enemy Pie is an adorable book. Please don't ruin it for your fourth grader and go home and get it tonight, although it's so cute, you could probably read it 100 times. But Enemy Pie is a great story of a very wise dad who helps his son navigate having an arch enemy and how through pie you might be able to solve that problem. I mean, I think a lot of things can be solved. Okay. In the spring of grade 4, this is one of those things that we're talking about, a downward grade. In the past, and including, this is going to be clear, in the 22-23 school year, our current fifth graders have not had this lesson. So this year, our fourth graders are going to experience the lesson about their bodies and puberty for the first time. It will be in the spring. Families will get a notification that this is the day that they are going to participate in the lesson. Families will get a preview to the materials that are going to be used so that families are well informed, mostly so that they can continue the conversation at home, because we know what a difficult time this is for all of us who have been through it. So they will learn to identify all the physical, emotional, and traits that go with this. They will identify that their hormones make changes in their bodies, and they will explore what happens during puberty. Now getting into fifth grade. Human relationships, medicine and drugs, personal safety. As I just said, this year, and I don't think I was clear in fourth grade, they will be separated. Okay, so students with female bodies will go with other students with female bodies, and they will learn about what happens to their female bodies. People with male bodies will go with other male bodies, and they will learn what happens to male bodies. In fifth grade, since it has not happened for these students before, we will do the same thing in the 22-23 school year. And so you will experience the same thing. You'll get a letter, you'll get information, you'll know what day it's going to happen, you'll get an opportunity to preview the material. Following this school year, it won't happen in fifth grade anymore. Puberty will happen in fourth grade, and fifth grade will just jump into all the students together in one class, learning that puberty is a time of emotional change. They do learn human reproductive systems, and this was a question that I've received in the past. I'd like to assure you, they learn it through a very clinical lens. It is like teaching science. There is a female egg, there is a male sperm. When they get together, they make a baby, and we get a human. That is the level of fifth grade information that is presented. We are not discussing romantic relationships at this level. We do talk about gender expression, and sexual orientation are all concepts introduced at fifth grade, which is, again, a reminder, their first year of middle school. Continuing to explore healthy and unhealthy relationships and how to communicate Safe online environment. A lot of our safety topics, and you'll see it in a couple older grades, we talk very specifically about dangerous online behaviors in both gaming and social media that help our children protect themselves from the things that they can be lured into in online gaming and social media. So we talk about the high-risk behaviors, boundaries again, talking about more specifically, now we've got, drugs and alcohol, dependency, addiction, conflict resolution, continuing our first aid. But I said to you that there are some new concepts introduced in 5th grade. So in the 5th grade curriculum, students will learn these topics with these definitions. So what is gender identity? Gender identity is a person's sense of being a boy, girl, neither, or anything in between. It is how you feel. Everyone has a gender identity. Transgender is someone whose gender identity does not match the sex that they were assigned at birth. Gender expression is the outward expression of that. Students will also learn that you should not assume someone's identity based on their expression. You can't guess someone's gender or guess someone's pronouns from our appearance, and we all need to have respect that every individual is different and that we don't bully or tease anyone about their expression. When we learn about sexual orientation at grade 5, the full definition is who you are attracted to. Not more complicated than that. That's where the definition will live. This is a great resource that your children will see. It talks about the connection of these concepts, your body that you're born at birth with, how others see you, how you represent yourself, and all of that together is how is defining your gender identity, how you see yourself on the inside. This video can be found inside the curriculum. I'm going to share with you, I think it is an incredibly great and useful video, the LGBT Explained Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity. Please look it up through that name, but again, the link is in the curriculum. It is a very 5th grade appropriate conversation with these 4 teens and a medical doctor. And I think it'll be a great resource for our students to be introduced to these concepts that will be new to many of them and to learn to understand these ideas and these concepts. And then there's a wonderful book called It Feels Good to Be Yourself, which is a book all about gender identity and explaining it. In grade 6, we continue on personal growth and development with substance abuse and more human relationships. So we will compare growth patterns between male and females. We will label and identify the parts of the male and female reproductive systems and understand the function of the reproduction systems and how to stay healthy. They will identify what are signs of pregnancy. How do you know? What is the sequence of fertilization, growth, fetal development during pregnancy? Explain healthy and unhealthy relationships, and going back to substance abuse, impact the drug and alcohol abuse, talking about over-the-counter medications that adolescents might have used and the connections between mental health and substance abuse. At this point, I do not continue to share resources in the presentation, but I assure you that there are lots of resources to be shared within the curriculum. And of course, at the end, you're going to be told to reach out to your principals and health teachers, but I just wanted to really focus on the elementary school resources that I know lots of people have asked a lot about. So I hope that those are helpful to you to begin to see Montgomery Township's interpretation of the standards. In grade 7, 3 units, nutrition, alcohol, tobacco, other drugs, human relationships. Healthy ways for students to lose, gain, and maintain weight. Mental illness is introduced here, how to keep ourselves emotionally well, first aid, summarizing signs and symptoms of alcohol abuse, drug abuse. We talk about disorders and how to, again, seek help. And we also talk about how to, avoid the pressure and how to make choices and how to protect yourself. We also introduce the concept of consent and risk for sexual assault and abuse. Because in 7th grade, we really kind of introduce the beginnings of safe dating. And so, what are relationships in terms of a dating relationship? So students will discuss LGBTQIA inclusive language choices. They will learn to help identify, what are safe criteria, what's a group date, dating somebody my own age, all of those characteristics that hopefully keep our young people, our young adolescents as they enter this phase in life safe. We do talk about the sexting and pornography laws. We just don't want them to do it. and also knowing the legal ramifications of what happens when we have pictures that we shouldn't have being passed around or on our phones. And again, continuing to talk about risky online behavior, keeping students safe, the idea that everybody that you meet online is not who you think you're meeting online, and that is the lens, and this is, I know that again, this is one of those questions that have been, topics that have been brought up. Where does human trafficking live? It lives partially here. So we look at it through the lens of online safety, learning about human trafficking, and referring it to modern slavery and child exploration. The resources being used for this are not inflammatory, they are highly informational, and they are not, our goal is to not traumatize our children, but to inform them to keep them safe. Grade 8, we get to personal relationships and consent. Remember, they are entering high school the following year. Once again, you're seeing a theme of sexual abuse, social media, pregnancy, human relationships. When you go into, or if you go into the 8th grade curriculum, you'll also see a unit that is labeled the Drugs and Substance Abuse Unit, and it'll say Transition Unit, because again, that's one of those things that went down to 7th grade, but since the current 8th graders didn't get it, the 8th grade teacher will scaffold it into 8th grade help as well. So in here, we continue now to explore gender identity, sexual orientation, cultural stereotyping. We do New Jersey's health curriculum stresses the benefits of sexual abstinence and helps students identify strategies to resist pressure. At the same time, we do explore methods of contraception, and we include, making sure that students know behaviors that will put them at risk for HIV, AIDS, and STIs, as well as unintended pregnancy. In order to do that, they will be introduced to the various types of sexual activity to know how to keep themselves safe. So again, this is a clinical informational lesson. It is important that they have the right information, but it is taught in a way that is through the lens of safety. STI treatment, students will learn about PrEP and PEP and HIV testing, and also unhealthy relationships and how to get out of an unhealthy relationship. So we continue topics about dating. Consent comes into conversations. Really great consent lessons are being part of 8th grade. Pregnancy, stages of pregnancy, prenatal care. Abortion is introduced as a medical procedure because, again, I just want to remind you that New Jersey's health curriculum is a abstinence-focused health curriculum, but we still talk about abortion as a medical procedure used to terminate a pregnancy. And we do talk about methods of contraceptions used by adolescents, as well as the New Jersey Safe Haven Law. Okay, so that's K-8. I'm going to go through high school at a much quicker pace because most of the things in high school have always been in the high school curriculum. Again, maybe some of the standards have been fleshed out a little bit more, but they're not really new topics. So 9th grade talks about substance abuse, wellness and mental health, coming of age. I will be very clear that our high school health and PE teachers focus on mental health in every unit, in every class, at every grade level, even if it doesn't get its own bullet point. It is something that we obviously care very deeply about at the high school level, all of our schools, but high schoolers. 10th grade, driver's ed. So we all need to teach them how to drive. Grade 11, understanding emergencies, first aid. We've done lots of I believe our teachers are first aid certified. We do lots of Red Cross work here. We are also going to be using the mental health Red Cross resources for some of the mental health resources. And then again, physical wellness and nutrition, how to keep our bodies well, lifelong fitness. In grade 12, you get into the real stuff, relationships, family life and education, marriage, teen pregnancy, babies, what's the impact of having a baby when you are a young teen. Circle of life is grief, death, mental health during those times as well. So what I've done here is just highlighted a few of the standards. Since this presentation is going to be available for all of you, I'm just going to highlight a few of them. Our standards talk about advocacy at the high school level, advocating for policies and programs that promote dignity for all. Making sure that we address social issues that are affecting perceptions of sexuality, culture, ethnicity, disability status, and we encourage students to problem solve and make recommendations for how to make the world a better place, how to make their life a better place, what they need as individuals. Boundaries, respect to others, definitely related to intimacy and sexual behavior. Talking about safe relationships, and that the last one, we have federal laws related to a minor's ability to give and receive consent. The consent law is a very important law. We want our students to deeply understand what that means. Pregnancy and parenting, this is where I say we've got the advantages of disadvantages of different contraceptives. We've got overcoming, keeping ourselves safe from STIs, being able to find trusted adults to talk to, keeping ourselves emotionally and socially and physically well, and then assessing those needs to be a parent, and talking about the safe haven law, again, and making sure that our students know where to access information and services around contraception and pregnancy options and prenatal care. So I'm just going to summarize now. We've actually made it through. We have made it through grades 1 through 12. So health education, what's our goals? School needs to be a safe place for all students, and health class is a really big part of that. We have students and families who identify as part of the LGBTQ community at all of our schools, and it is important as a school community that we understand appropriate language and inclusive behaviors is a responsibility of all community members in the school, and our health curriculum is designed to create that inclusive, safe, educated, informed environment. So tonight, what's next? So recommendations for families. Go on the district website and locate your student's grade level curriculum. Read through it. Remember my slides on the skills and content box. Reach out to the principals with clarifying questions. If you don't feel like the skills and content gave you what you needed, reach out to your building principal, or wait until your child's health teacher is assigned and communicate directly with the teacher who's going to be teaching that content. If you're going to choose to have your student excused from a unit or topic, it is important when you make that phone call or send that email that you know what you're asking your student to be excused from. So we're asking you to identify which unit and topics you may want your child to not participate in those lessons around. So let me talk a little bit more about opting out. In the state of New Jersey, educational code exists to allow families to opt out of health curriculum that is in conflict with a family's sincerely held moral religious beliefs, and that child shall be excused from that portion of the course with no penalties of credit or graduation. So this goes by, just kind of jump myself ahead in this slide. Identify the unit that is in conflict with your belief system, and please email the system identifying that unit and the content from which you'd like to have your child excused from. Now, due to the nature of certain topics, there might be times where you say, I just really don't want my child present for topic X, and the principal might say, okay, that's really hard in this unit because it's really just an embedded context in this unit, and it really is going to be a series of lessons that your student needs to be excused from. But that will be a guiding conversation that your principal and the health teachers can help you with. But we are still asking you to identify the specific unit and topics that you would like your child to not participate in, if that is where you find yourself. I need to clarify, though, that New Jersey also has the New Jersey Diversity and Inclusion and Equity legislation. This applies to grades kindergarten through grade 12, and it instructs districts to make sure that we highlight and promote diversity, including economic diversity, equity, inclusion, tolerance, belonging in connection with gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicities, disabilities, religious tolerance, to examine both the impact of unconscious bias and economic disparities, and this is to create that safe and welcoming place regardless of race, ethnicity, sexual and gender identities, and mental, physical disabilities, and religious beliefs. This is the law that refers to all of the other curriculum. There is not, oh, thank you. There is not an opt-out option for the rest of the curriculum. There is only the opt-out option refers to health and family life lessons. Okay, Board of Ed, I am here to take your questions.
If you have Orland.
There's more to say.
For that So the floor is open now for the board members to ask questions or comment about the presentation on our health standards. Yeah, board member Speck, sure.
So just to clarify, and you kind of embedded it in the discussion, there are state standards that are broad-based topics, and then local districts take those and go through the process that you indicated, which happened over years, couple years, months, trying to understand, what was the rationale for certain things? Is it something that fits into our community or not? And from there, then the actual curriculum and resources are created.
Yes, and I don't think that can be clarified enough, so thank you for restating it all. I'd also like to stress that at every level, I worked with teachers who have taught that grade level here in Montgomery. Either they're currently teaching those students or they have taught before. Every single health and PE teacher has touched the health and PE curriculum in some way. But in a school district, there are certain people who say, no, I like writing curriculum and I want to be part of your writing team. So everybody who is on the actual identified writing team has taught that grade level, and they are, I'm so excited for the work that I got to do with them, and I can stand here with a lot of confidence and say to you, they were incredible guides at saying, yes, this is what a fifth grader can understand, and no, we don't talk about that in fifth grade, and yes, this can go down to third grade. It is our own health teachers with years of experience in front of this age of children who selected the resources and helped guide the placement, given by the standards, the content identified in the standard grade level bands that were given by the state.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question about, so the lesson plans that each teacher writes. Thank you. And this is a question, and just for you to clarify to the families. The lesson plans that each teacher writes, they submit these lesson plans, correct? So they have to be reviewed. So again, this helps the teachers stay within the content, not use the resources that were provided, the books that were provided. There could be, how much leniency do they have to add additional material? I mean, it's pretty specific on what they can address, and they are, again, being reviewed by administration as well, correct?
Right, so across all subject areas, right? And I speak very highly to our curriculum that has been written over many years, not this, I don't know this, written over many years by many teachers in our district, supervised by incredible content area supervisors. Teachers start with a curriculum. This is what you have to make sure we consider it backwards design. At the end of the day, students need to learn these things. Then teachers, with all of their training and all of their experience, they design the lesson plans for how they're going to get their kids there. Now, the important thing to know about lesson plans is lesson plans are written by teachers for teachers. So they look different because a teacher of 20 years is different than a teacher of 1 year, and teachers have different strengths. And also, my first period class has this group of students, and my third period class has this group of students. So they are supposed to be dynamic and adaptable and different based on the needs of the children in front of them. So that's teachers' lesson plans. But the outcomes don't change. So the outcomes are dictated by the curriculum document. And I'm going to just be honest with you, as I should be. Sometimes the resources change in other content areas and across the board because we empower teachers to find material, to find things that align with the content that meet the needs of their students and excite them as teachers as well. That does happen. We are asking teachers to closely adhere to the resources and the content that has been provided as we experience our first year rolling out the 2020 standards. So yes, they are submitted and they'll be, that's all part of the process.
Thank you.
Zelda.
Ms. Borland,
Dr. Watts.
thank you for that. So you just stated that we encourage teachers, or you as a director of curriculum and instruction, encourage teachers to seek, alternative resources that's not in the curriculum. Can you share with us the process, or did I mishear you? What's the
No, I guess I'm really more
process?
referring to the fact that, a teacher might be teaching a 10th grade chemistry lesson, and they might have attended a PD that they come across that is about photosynthesis is not 10th grade, so now I'm back in middle school. I'm teaching a photosynthesis lesson, and I have found this great resource. I found a great graphic that was part of a professional development art plan tour, or my friend, or, we know that teachers use Teachers Pay Teachers because there's great things on there. And so that is what I'm speaking to. They might use a resource that they find as an effective means to communicate the content in the curriculum. They're not straying from the content in the curriculum. And so we do provide resources, we provide textbooks, we provide video databases. Our teachers use many, many brain pop videos actually in the health curriculum. So you'll see that's a resource that the school district buys and provides for the teachers. But that was all I meant by that sometimes teachers will locate a resource that matches, thank you for clarifying, that matches a curriculum, not that they've gone rogue.
I thought it'd be helpful.
I appreciate that.
Especially for our parents. So, additionally, could you talk to us more specifically about monitoring? So we know that, or some of you have learned this evening, that the curriculum, is the framework by which teachers pull and, develop their lesson plans. So talk to us more explicitly about the monitoring process that teachers are actually teaching, the resources and the content and skills and adhering to the standards that's very clearly outlined in the curriculum.
So I want to start by just reinforcing where I said earlier that I've had the opportunity to work intimately with the health and PE teachers across the district for the last 2 years. All of our teachers, K-12, every content area, teachers are professionals. It is part of our professional practice to teach our curriculum. That's what we're trained to do. That's what we spend many years going to school for. And we have licenses that we care about, that we want to keep, that we want to then do what we are supposed to do, which is take our curriculum and implement into the classroom in order for our students to be successful. So although there is absolutely monitoring, right? Teachers write lesson plans, they turn in lesson plans, they know what the principals and supervisors know what is being taught in a classroom. It is also, we rely on the fact that they are teaching professionals. So it's not like there is a big brother that has to be monitoring every daily step because they are committed as professionals to teaching the curriculum. I don't want to skip away from saying teachers write lesson plans are submitted, lesson plans are reviewed. All of those steps do happen, but really what you need to rely on, and if you are a concerned parent and you are in a place that you are wondering whether or not this curriculum is the right curriculum for your child, talking to the health professional who is going to teach it is the best thing that you can do, because they are the people who are going to give you they're going to give you the facts, but they're also going to give you that confidence that their goal is to not go rogue. Their goal is to meet the needs of the curriculum and to meet the needs of their students.
Thank you, Board Member Burge.
Thank you. This comments in the past have been concerned about whether or not masturbation is going to be taught. So I'm wondering about that. And I'm also wondering, have these aspects of sex been taught before? I know we've taught sex education for at least as long as I've been alive. So I'm assuming that's a long time.
I'll answer I can answer both questions. Okay, I was going to answer them in a different order. So we've spoken about it before. Ms. McLaughlin has explained it from the days before, that the things that are listed in the parentheses in the state standards. Now this is important, because when you open up those curriculum documents, the first thing that you're going to see are the state standards. Things in parentheses are examples or suggestions. The statement before the parentheses is what we are obligated to adhere to. So you are not going to find masturbation listed in any of our skills and content boxes across the curriculum. It's not listed there. It means it's not going to be in class. So look in the skills and content box, and if something is missing, it's not being taught. That's why the skills and content box exists. Second question?
The aspects of sex that you're teaching.
Yes. So I will say that, yes, as I started with saying, many of these standards are not new. Much of this content is not new. We have seen some shifting grade levels. So some things being taught in 8th grade have been mentioned in 8th grade, are going to be taught more explicitly in 8th grade, and that is following national trends, national safety, going back to When do you talk to your kids about the hard things before they experience the hard things? So when do we talk to kids about in-depth sexual education and sexual health before they are encountering it, so that they have the information to make those healthy decisions for themselves?
If I may, I saw a slide earlier in the presentation, I think perhaps the middle school grade band, where you reference abortion and pornography, and our parents have been repetitive and absolutely understandably so, because these topics are so very, grounded, right, in principle and value, which our parents here in Montgomery Township hold so dear. So could you please be a little bit more explicit in the ways in which those two constructs look in the curriculum and in the lesson delivery?
Right, so the reference to pornography is referencing to sexting, and that is the reference in the curriculum. And so I think everybody's probably familiar with the definition of it, but it is simply the texting of inappropriate images between cell phones or between social media messaging. There is a lot to say about the law, right? So the law qualifies those images as child pornography, and owning them, being in possession of them, is actually a crime. And so that is what is talked about. It is actually helping our young adults recognize that being in possession of any of those kind of images, even if they are somebody you know or are romantically involved in, it is still a crime, it is still illegal. That is where the word pornography is in the standards. It is related to that we are defining the act of sexting as child pornography, and it is something that we don't want. So that's a great clarification. You asked about abortion. So it is mentioned at the 8th grade level. I am confident it is also repeated at the high school level. It is not a promoted act. It is a medical procedure that ends and terminates a pregnancy. And an abortion might be needed for many reasons, and as they spiral up, the difference in 8th grade is it's just presented as a medical procedure. As they go up to the high school, they may learn about different reasons that might cause that, different health causes during a pregnancy that could cause a situation that might be considered, but it is always framed under the lens of a medical procedure.
Great.
And I want to add one more thing to that. Thank you. One of the goals of this curriculum, and one of my personal goals in this process, and I've enjoyed this process thoroughly. I've enjoyed the learning and thinking deeply about it with my colleagues across the state and with our teachers here in Montgomery. But one of the goals that I had was to make this easy for parents to understand. Because even if your child, I hope, is participating in our curriculum, I want the parents in our community to know where and when it's talked about. So these really hard conversations that might be influenced by people's faiths and belief systems and moral values should be continued at home. And so being able to locate where it's going to happen, what grade level, and that level of transparency is really what we're trying to create through the public curriculum documents. So I hope families can find them and research them and then be able to continue these conversations at home.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? I know that you had mentioned that there would be notification going home in 4th grade and 5th grade when you're going to do the puberty talk. Will other grades be notified of any other hot topic issues?
No, so the notification is the curriculum that's posted, right? So knowing that there is a new, I don't think anyone's missed that there is a new health curriculum, but it will also be, health teachers will be able to have information about it at back to school night. And so the idea that once you really get past that first initial, hi, this is puberty, everything else is interwoven into the units, into the whole curriculum, as you saw by the long list of content. So there's not another specific moment where you're going to say, hey, this is a lesson for today. It just woven into, human development is woven into what they're learning in the class as a unit. So there's not yet, no.
Board member?
So on that note, can you be more specific on, I know you said the information spiral through the curriculum, but what then are the students able to opt out of? And then in addition to that, opting out, what does that look like, during the school day for families? Or for the student? Is the student sent to another room, or can you elaborate a little bit more?
So part of that I'm going to say, remember that there's a reminder to everyone that there's a town hall on Thursday night, and that'll give a time for more questions that have been submitted for us to answer, and I'm sure that that's one of the answers. The answer to that is a little complicated in the sense of it's very different if one child opts out, where we can send one child, and versus if there was a larger number of students that opt out. Also, school buildings all have different schedules. So the reason I can't give that answer right now is because it is building-based. And so if a parent chooses that an opt-out option is right for their family, then asking that question of the principals will have answers for them, and they'll be able to be more specific with what that will happen. Again, what we are asking of families is that you take the time. I encourage you, I hope tonight, and it was purposeful, I know it was long, but it was purposeful to include all of the health topics, because New Jersey health curriculum is comprehensive. We learn about communicable and incommunicable diseases, we learn about drug addiction, we learn about mental health, we learn about physical fitness, we learn about health and how to be a healthy human. So we are asking you as a family, if you think that this is an option that you need to take use of, which it exists for, to go into the curriculum, identify the unit, and talk to the principal or the health teacher about that unit. They will help guide you and be able to say, you know what, that's 2 lessons. Mrs. Tanzola knows when those 2 lessons are going to happen. We'll make sure your child is occupied in another wonderful way, and they won't be part of that. Or they'll say, you know what, it'll be very hard for them to be part of the entire unit, because the unit just weaves and bobs through the entire concept of human reproduction and human sexuality. We really recommend that your child that you stay out of the entire unit 3. So it'll be a little specific based on what the needs are.
Thank you.
So it seems that you stressed that this is partly about safety, and it's partly about respect, and that there are things that are going on in the schools that are not happening in the classroom by the classroom teacher. They may be happening on a bus, they may be happening in the lunchroom, they may be happening in a number of places. And I think it's true to say that there are issues that have come up in the past. The example of sexting is one where kids have done that. The example of bullying, we get HIV reports, harassment, intimidation, and bullying reports about incidents that have happened. And so it seems to me that part of this discussion is to try to handle those types of things and to address them in a more productive way than just letting things go untaught, undiscussed. Is that a fair statement?
Not only is it a fair statement, I hope that, I don't have to hope. I feel very confident with the building principals who have come out tonight that I will, share with all of you that I previewed this content with them many times as documents were being created, sharing with principals so that they knew what was happening, where we were landing, where the curriculum writing team was landing with each content. I am confident that the principals would tell you that, yes, this is appropriate to children in our building. Yes, this is appropriate to children in our building, and so forth and so on, all the way from Orchard through the high school, at every grade level. It is topics that are happening at that grade level. So that, to me, is a really important part of the transparency and this relationship between the home and the school, that if parents are going to choose to do home education on these topics, I still think it's important for families to walk away knowing that these are the grade levels where other students are going to be talking about this information and where their child is likely to encounter this, and the transparency should all help us encounter those situations in a more positive way.
And we hope that there will be fewer incidents of negative behavior as a result of this.
Yes, and a
That's
more
wonderful.
inclusive, a more respectful environment so that we all really value each other's uniqueness.
All right, I have a question about the High Tops organization. Now, I am aware that it's probably the only organization in New Jersey, right, that specifically provides support, education and information around the LGBTQ high A+ community, whether it's youth or families or professionals or what have you. And that as a Board of Education, there was approval of contracting with this particular agency back in March or April of this year. So in my best attempt not to necessarily conflate the issue of this organization, but I would like to connect it to our curriculum and the lessons that will be taking place in the classroom, because the high tops, seemingly when I peruse, their website and read through all the information, that community is their target, right, seemingly, right? So if you could explain to the parents the rationale for choosing to contract with this agency, and what role, if any, will they play in our curriculum and lesson delivery for students?
So if you go back to the board meeting where Dr. Rubicelli presented for us, where she started was with statistics about our LGBTQ youth. You can also find many of the statistics she shared with us on the page of the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project is a great page to learn about the challenges that our LGBTQ youth face. The statistics around mental health, suicide, mental wellness, bullying of our LGBTQ community are high, staggering across the country. What you do to counter that is to create an affirming environment that lets a human, an individual, feel safe as they are developing and growing across the grade levels. This is new language, right? We have researchers, we have experts. I don't hold a degree in psychology. I am an instruction curriculum person through and through. Every degree I have has something to do with instruction and curriculum. So I needed, our health teachers, our school community needed to access experts that help train us in how to use language to create safe and affirming classrooms. How do we do that? What's the right vocabulary? What do I need to understand about a child on a gender journey? How do I keep them safe? How do I affirm them? How do I talk about sexuality in a way that is applicable to every child in my class, regardless of their gender or their sexual orientation? And so really helping make sure that I have enough information as a health professional to properly, with good language, with affirming language, tackle the topics that are included in the new health standards. They are experts in that field. And so they have come in to do professional development with us, to help us hone our language, to know to give us felt need behind this, to know why creating an affirming situation, an affirming curriculum has great value, why it matters for a public school community, and they are there to help us with questions. I have all sorts of questions. I want to make sure I get something right. So we are currently using them in that capacity. We have a contract with them. They will be there on the journey with our health and PE teachers, helping us learn to teach puberty lessons in a way that meet the needs of all students, talk about the impact of, again, mental health, all of those things. They are not teaching in the classroom at this time. If that will not change in the K-8 environment. If there is a future in which they are used at a higher grade level, parents would be informed. So we would work that out in the future, and that would be very transparent if that's where we land. Right now, our current contract leaves them there for us as resources.
So they're resources for the staffing exclusively to provide professional development for the staffing? Is that the health and PE teachers only, or all of the teachers?
All teachers.
As administrators?
All teachers, administrators, and the health and PE teachers.
Okay, so I don't want it to appear as if I'm nitpicking, but, these questions are largely as a part of my conversations, among different persons in the community. So please just bear with me, Ms. Boyle.
Do my best.
Thank you. So you stated that, the professionals at High Tops are experts. How do we know that?
So I believe she introduced her own credentials. I believe that Dr. Vaselli, I don't want to misquote her. So she introduced her credentials that night. I know she has professional credentials in the background of educational psychology. I want to stop my answer there. But when we contract with a firm, we always have the ability, and we do seek the professional credentials of the people that we bring in to be staff development, whether they are, in my world, whether I'm bringing in staff developers around response to intervention or universal design for learning or letters literacy program. I know the credentials of the presenters. We know the credentials of High Tops. They have credentials and experts in this area, as well as years of experience in working with LGBTQ youth. That's what they bring to the table and how they're helpful to us.
Thank you.
Madam President, can I just,
Yeah, board member Burge, please.
I'm sorry, I just want to say that High Tops is definitely started, right, and it is now two-part, right? It started as a sex education organization for youth, right, and it still does that. It also now has expanded to do the inclusive activity for that in terms of sex education, and it also has a separate section where it is a support group for LGBTQIA+ youth. So it's got those two components. So it definitely has, for 30 years, been an expert in sex education, because I guess I worked with them way over 20 years ago on sex ed. So I can at least attest to that as well. So I think that's also part
Thank
of
you,
it.
board member Burge.
And the district used them in that capacity, just as we're using them in the capacity now. I mean, they're not a new organization that's just come, that we're hanging our hat on or something. There's been work with them. Okay.
Does this conclude the board member?
I'm sorry, I just want to say thank you. I know you and all of the
We do know that you are going to stick around and be available if community members during their 3 minutes of public comment present a question that you're confident that you're able to answer, and we'll do so at the end.
Yes, and I just want to, just because of social norms, I do want you to know, if you see me on my iPad or phone, it's because I'm writing down what you're speaking about. So I am eagerly attentive and writing things down. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It's really appreciated. So now, we're at the point of our agenda where I'm going to read the instructions for our first public comment of new business. And we know tonight is an exception, as it was during the July 2022 meeting, where community members are encouraged to include a question specific to Ms. Borland's presentation. The Board of Education welcomes and encourages input from the public. Members of the public are allotted one opportunity to bring any new business to the board for up to a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. All comments or questions must be directed to the chair, which is the board president, and not to any audience or participant. Before you make your comment, please state your name and address and write it in the notebook that's provided as well. Be mindful of privacy rights, as I iterated earlier, regarding students and board employees and board members, to avoid any potential liability on the part of the speaker. The board discourages references to specific individuals. While directing your comments or questions to the board president, please understand that the public comment portions of the meeting are not structured as question and answer sessions, but rather are offered as opportunities for you to share your thoughts with the board. The board president may need to refer an issue to the superintendent, or in tonight's case, our curriculum and instruction director, and to further reply. So there are times when comments and questions will require additional fact gathering, before a response is provided. And so far this year, we've been pretty consistent in doing so when we're unable to respond immediately to a question or a comment. So public comment is open at this time. Board Secretary Shower, do you want to, will you be utilizing the
Yeah, I just
feature on
wanted
the screen?
to,
If
yeah,
you
I just
could
let the
explain
public
that
know
to
we
the
have a little
public.
counter, you see on the screen back here, 3 minutes. And you will be given a warning at 2.5 minutes. Thank you. We're just trying to give everyone the opportunity to speak and still get out of here before midnight. Thank you.
Well, hopefully, well before midnight. That's the goal. Hi, Mr. Wilson.
Hello, Christopher Wilson, Carriage Trail. I'm the founder of MTSDkid.org, a parent group advocating for evidence-based literacy instruction and for students with dyslexia. I'm grateful to speak to this board, to educators, and to families of children who are learning to read. Like all of you, I live a readerly life with my children, for example, by going to the library and reading bedtime stories. Still, my child struggled with learning to read while at OHES. Students are aware when they're struggling. It's traumatic, and the daily trauma of not being able or struggling to learn to read, even at a very young age, is an adverse childhood experience that takes its toll via negative effects on the social, emotional, physical, and mental well-being of our students. How children learn to read is the most studied aspect of human learning. While most children learn to talk and walk naturally without help from adults, learning to read is different. Every student needs to be taught to read. Just as children have seen you drive many times but still benefit from practice with a driving instructor, or will become a master pianist by listening to a lot of Mozart, reading is not hardwired in the brain, and the neural pathways needed for skillful reading must be developed through successful instructional experience, which is to say explicit systematic phonics instruction and connected practice with decoding while building knowledge. When this is better emphasized, a strange code becomes unlockable. Words become worlds. The processes in your brain become better at unlocking the code, faster, practically instantaneous, so that you can't help but read. And what's more, because it's becoming easier and easier, you want to. This is the root of joy in reading. The right to read and effective instruction is therefore essential to bring about health and education, equity in an equitable society, and to address our district goals, in particular SEL and universal design for learning. So, families, now that you know this, as partners with your child's teacher, ask them, how are they teaching foundational skills? Ask them what specific phonics skills your child is being taught. Ask them to send home decodable text connected to their instruction, so you can help your child practice reading words without guessing or using pictures, but by reading the words. But most importantly, speak up if you feel your child isn't reading at grade level. Trust your gut. Don't take a wait-and-see approach, and do not accept that everyone develops differently, and it simply takes time. There's a small window of time when children are best able to learn to read. And if your teacher thinks a 1 or 2 on your reading report card is okay, and is maybe taking a wait-and-see approach while you think your child is struggling, act. Please ask the important questions of the reading curriculum and instruction, and don't wait. Again, you can find my group at mtsdkid.org. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Graham.
Hi. Good evening. I'm Jeffrey Grant, 6 Livingston Drive. And thank you, board members, for being here. I know you have a tough job and sometimes a thankless job, and I appreciate you being here and doing your job for us. I'm going to talk about the NEA. There was a video that's been on national news about the NEA, and the question for the board is, do you think I am a parent extremist? If so, why? If so, why not? And do you think any parents here are parent extremists? So I'm going to play this video. It's 15 seconds. And tell me what you think. What's wrong with you? Well, the joke's on me, but it's a national video, and it ends with the NEA accusing parents that come to school board meetings of being extremists for political purposes. And I apologize, my YouTube just advanced to the wrong screen. But the question is, do you think any parents here, do you think I'm an extremist? So we're going to talk about the MTSD and the evidence of its infecting our community with a sex worker named Harmonica Sunbeam this past June. She introduced a boundary into our community. I remind you that Mr. Jim Dolan, the MTA president, and MTEA members obstructed me from my legal right to attend its June 14th Harmonica Sunbeam Drag Queen Story Hour. The MTA leadership's actions on this matter were subversive. I believe the MTA leadership is not representative of a mass majority of teachers. The mass majority are dedicated to their professions. Many are parents themselves and are good, solid, morally strong citizens. My heart goes out to teachers that wind up being compelled to partake in teaching New Jersey sex education standards. Standards, based upon what we know from the way the laws are written and the standards are written, are simply pedophilia. As of 2018, teachers do not have to be basted by MTEA subversion and can opt out of the union. I encourage all upstanding teachers to spread the word that they can opt out of the MTEA union. So that's that question for you, Mrs. Borland. You did a great job with your presentation. However, did not hear the word parents mentioned even once. I think that's a fault in how you're looking at your job and how you're looking at the curriculum. I saw the standards, I read the standards inform the curriculum informs the lessons plans. Your presentation sounded great, but you cannot make a purse out of a sow's ear. The New Jersey sex education standards corrupt our children. Parents are required to protect our children. Our school board answers to the children's parents, that's us. So the question is, what is our school board prepared to do to enforce parents' obligation to protect their children? Thank you.
Karen Anderson, 926 Kane Court. I'm sharing a story. This is on behalf of a parent who is not in the room but wants me to share it. This is a story
Before your 3 minutes begin, I just want to remind you, because that I'm aware of the situation. I think you know that. Just make sure that you get to all the points before the 3 minutes. I think it might be wrong.
Not this time. Thank you. This relates to bullying, and a story. This is a parent. I'm sharing another story of a Montgomery parent. My son is an incoming senior. Again, I'm talking louder. This is not me. This is another parent I'm sharing the story about. My son is an incoming senior. After watching the last couple of board meetings and seeing information on the new High Tops curriculum, I thank God my son is a senior. My son is a hearing impaired individual who wears hearing aids and has been bullied in the district for as far back as I can remember. They would purposely whisper things in his ear so he would miss directions in class. They hit him, and they even threw food at him. My son does not want anything to do with school. He does not want a yearbook. He does not want to go on a senior trip or walk in his graduation ceremony. His exact words are, "My prison term is up and there is nothing about Montgomery I want to remember." The district will not do anything about it. All this bullying put him in a very dark place. Our family went through one of the worst times in our lives. The district did not change their curriculum for kids with disabilities. What makes this group of people so much more important than the many kids with disabilities who suffer every day of their school lives? I remember when spring and winter break used to be called Christmas and Easter break. Not all families in our community celebrate those holidays, so they changed them, so as not to enforce religious preference. That's understood. Their wishes were honored. And now the district is forcing sexual preference identification on families that don't agree with it, and our wishes are not being honored. Slowly but surely, the district is taking away our freedom and rights as parents. These are our children, and we should have some say in what is being taught to our kids. There should have been more transparency of the involvement of high tops in our curriculum and more parent involvement in the decisions. Thank you.
You can leave the book right on the, you don't have to keep looking up, just leave it out.
Thanks. My name is Catherine Lugg.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
My name is Catherine Lugg.
L-U-G-G?
Yes, ma'am. I live in Belmead. I'm a retired professor of education, administration, and policy.
I'm sorry, repeat your name?
Lugg, L-U-G-G, Catherine
Ms. Love.
at Rutgers. And I just want to thank the board, the administrators, the teachers, the students for tackling this curriculum reform and being an example of best practice. I know you're not getting a lot of pats on the head, but this is really outstanding work. And New Jersey, in its wisdom, is doing a great job of protecting all students, particularly our LGBTQ, and I'll move up the alphabet, and I'm part of the club, but I apologize for that. But the district is drawing on decades of research and state regulations and building a more inclusive and fact-driven educational environment for all of our children. So thank you.
Janine Maslin, 204 Taggart Drive. I am, just to make a comment on, Madam President, on your opening statement, nothing in there mentioned anything about the parents with the state standards, so I noticed that. But I'm providing information on behalf of Janet Church at 24 Elm Drive, who is not available to be here today. This is what she wants to convey to the board. I, Janet Church, have lived in Montgomery Township since 1999. All three of my children attended Montgomery High School from 2000 until last year. It appears to me that the focus of the school board has shifted 180 degrees from academics to a social agenda. I hear the words diversity, safety, and inclusion. I have not heard the words math, science, history. Nothing about making up for learning lost due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Nothing about the money parents have invested in tutors for their children. I am opposed to the new sex ed curriculum, mostly especially for grades K through 5. Children should be children. If a boy wants to wear a dress or a girl wants to have a buzz cut, no one cares. But to bring up sex ed curriculum that is only introduced in health class, but apparently spiraled through all subjects, is unnecessarily and harmful. Kids have enough to sort through at these ages in these times. Why bring adult level topics into further confuse them? One student came to the board, the July Board of Education meeting, to decry the sex ed curriculum. He spoke very thoughtfully and compellingly, but was treated atrociously by an adult professional in the Montgomery community, and the police had to be involved to address the adult's hostile behavior. I thought we were advocating for diversity, which includes diversity of thought, inclusion, and safety. For every student like this one that spoke up at the last Board of Education, there were 10 more students who feel the same way but don't feel safe in speaking up, especially in front of their teachers and peers. My son was one of those students. Last year, my son was assigned to write about an LGBTQ topic. He chose to write about parents who are pushing preschoolers into changing their sexual identity, hormone blocking treatments, etc., and the harm this causes them. His teacher agreed he could write about the topic, but he also had to write about the other side. No one else was asked to write about two sides. When the school had gun violence walkouts, students with varying points of views were allegedly encouraged to speak. After my son's friend spoke about the Second Amendment, He exited the stage and another student approached him and knocked the MAGA hat off of his head in front of the students, faculty, and the police officer. No repercussions for that student. Did my son and his
Ms.
friends
Nazzle,
feel
30 seconds remaining.
did they feel that their opinions were valued? Did they feel safe? Not at all. Every day my son came home and told me the other story of how social agenda was permeating through every class and being distracted from hearing he could not wait to graduate. I ask the board members to listen to all parents, reflect on the information we provide you, and if you cannot support an academic-focused curriculum, you should resign and allow someone else to take this on. Respectfully, Janet.
Jen Rappaport, 9 Kingswood Drive. Okay. I'm the mom of twins entering 3rd grade in Village. My husband and I moved to Monty specifically for the school district. The educators here have been amazing, and we've been fortunate enough to have a couple of teachers I would classify as life-changing. With this in mind, there are a few things to unpack. I am not an educator. I have a master's in business and spend my days as a marketer. If the lockdown in 2020 proved anything to me, it's that I don't have the patience or the skill set to be an educator, which is fine, which is why I choose to live in New Jersey, the highest ranked state for public schools, and specifically Monty, one of the best rated districts in the state. If the teachers believe in the curriculum that is being proposed, I support the teachers. They are the experts. Citing the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists, students have demonstrated that comprehensive sexuality education programs reduce rates of sexual activity, sexual risk behaviors like unprotected sex, STIs, and adolescent pregnancy. Comprehensive sexuality education should begin in early childhood and continue through a person's lifespan. These programs should not only focus on reproductive development, STIs, and unplanned pregnancy, but they should also teach forms of sexual expression, healthy sexual and non-sexual relationships, gender identity, and sexual orientation. Further citing expert research, according to the Trevor Project, suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people aged 10 to 24, and LGBTQ youth are more than 4 times likely to attempt suicide than their peers. But LGBTQ youth who live in a community that is accepting of LGBTQ people reported much lower rates of attempting suicide than those who do not. LGBTQ youth who found their school and home to be LGBTQ affirming reported lower rates of attempting suicide. My kids started at Kid Connection right here in Monty, and I've seen so many of their classmates grow in the last 4 or 5 years, and I look forward to seeing these same kids hitting their future milestones. The prospect of any of these children in our community needlessly dealing with an unplanned pregnancy,
Ms. Rappaport, 30 seconds remaining.
STI, or worst of all, wanting to kill themselves because of their sexual orientation or gender identity makes me angry and breaks my heart, especially since we have the power to mitigate these situations with the proposed curriculum and with inclusive programming like Drag Queen Story Hour. If the thought of kids suffering needlessly because of ignorance doesn't make you angry or break your heart, you're not paying attention.
Thank you, Mrs. Rappaport. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rappaport.
Abby Grayson, 122 Monroe Avenue.
Hi, Ms. Grayson.
I didn't prepare anything to say, but I really just came up here to say I want to give a huge thank you to the board for their diligence on this. I'm a Montgomery parent. A lot of people who know me will know that I have a lot of bones to pick with the Montgomery Township School District about a lot of things, especially when it comes to curriculum education in other areas, and how that is gone about at times, and particularly when it comes to my own kids. This is not one of them, right? And the fact that we are spending so much time and energy and bandwidth defending this curriculum, basically to the whole community in service of placating a small amount, what I believe to be a small amount of people who oppose it for whatever reasons that they have, I think is a shame and is a waste of our time, our energy, and our resources. I think that the school board has done an exemplary job explaining this to everyone, and we're now at the risk of over-explaining it to the point that is not necessary. We need to just live these values. It's 2022. I can't believe that I'm standing up hearing some of that I'm in this meeting hearing some of the things that I'm hearing today. I'm a mental health professional in this town. I would challenge anyone here to sit with someone who's actually been suicidal because they feel that they cannot be who they are. Sit with that person. I do that all the time. That is my literal job, right? Sit with those people, look them in the face, and tell them that this is not necessary. When you do that, please come back and we can have a more extensive conversation about this. In the meantime, I'm very glad that the state of New Jersey is not in the dark ages and that Montgomery Township is backing this curriculum, and I wholeheartedly support it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hal Rappaport, 9 Kingswood Drive. I have something I've written, but I just wanted to thank everybody, and especially to thank the folks who worked on that curriculum, because having grown up in the Philadelphia school system, I wish I had that. But what I wanted to talk about was why we don't teach children heterosexual relationships, that a woman can love a man or a man can love a woman, and why not? It's natural, because anyone who's heterosexual feels it's natural, and they feel it would be right for them. For centuries, people who thought something didn't feel right for them must be trained out of anyone who didn't feel the same way. The same way they used to force left-handed people to use their right hand, because it's not natural for them or how they were born. Imagine if everyone thought you were broken because the hand you wrote with was wrong. We might even have protests or rallies in the street for people using their left hand. Today, we wouldn't think about retraining someone with the opposite dominant hand because we realize they're simply born that way. The U.S. National Institutes of Health concluded a long time ago that it was a genetic trait and not an abnormality. It's not a choice. We accepted the science and moved past the ignorance to retrain people from being something that they're not. The same scientific studies concluded being a left-handed person was not an abnormality back in the 1990s, that homosexuality is a hereditary trait and not a choice. Homosexuality trait is a hereditary trait and not a choice. We don't need to take time to have structured lessons or retraining sessions on hand dominance because it's not accepted as normal or natural. Years have passed since the scientific studies, and we've accepted this now as common knowledge. Maybe when time has passed, it's common knowledge that a person, a human being, can love any other human being, no matter what their gender. And maybe when we've accepted the science and moved past the ignorance, and maybe then there won't be any need to call for attention or teach a special class, because this will just be common knowledge. I look forward to the day when the lesson isn't necessary, when it's just accepted and common knowledge. Until then, we must teach science and move past the ignorance.
My name is Cindy Taylor, 36 Laval Way. I'm a resident of almost 25 years. I have 2 children who graduated from Montgomery, class of 2015 and 2019, and I served on the PTA for many years. I'm very happy to learn tonight of the new standards that will include sexual identity, sexual orientation, gender, and preference. Over 25 years ago, my oldest brother died. He was a gay man, but he lived in a time when he had to hide who he was from the world. He had to go to the prom with a girl to the park. He had to live a secret life during his entire school years. I loved him with all my heart, and I would hurt for him that he couldn't live a true, authentic life. He even tried to take his life at one point, but I interceded, and he wasn't happy with me. I tell you all this because I really thought by the year 2022, we would be in a better place regarding acceptance and compassion of all individuals. I think we're getting there. All LGBTQ+ individuals need to see themselves reflected in the world, in their homes, in their schools, and not feel afraid to live their lives. All LGBTQ+ individuals deserve the same compassion and acceptance as any other individual. I want you to imagine a world where your child cannot come out to you. Your child doesn't see them reflected and accepted in the world. Your child has to hide their true, authentic life and self. And then your child might even contemplate taking their own life, and perhaps be successful. If we don't educate our youth to accept and have compassion of all individuals, we are teaching them that a whole subsection of humans don't matter, and that could be your child. I'm counting on this board and the school district to make sure that every single student in this district feels included in every aspect of school life, including curriculum content, in age-appropriate books, in age-appropriate sex education. We cannot perpetuate a culture of exclusion towards the LGBTQ community. You know, before my brother passed away, I asked him if he had any regrets. And his response to me was that the world didn't allow him to be loved. He died a few hours after that statement. You know, there's a quote that I try to live by, and it goes like this: the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. Thank you.
Jessica Mintner, 694 Millstone River Road. I'm here on behalf of my 9-year-old son, which attends VES. He was begging me to come, and I told him he couldn't because I didn't feel safe after what, in one of the board meetings, one of our students that stood up and talked was treated by one of the people in the audience, and I'm glad I did it because she is here today. So this is, mind you, please keep in mind it's a 9-year-old. I wanted to share that once Pride Month started and there was more read-alouds, I felt more and more like this was something I wanted my parents to teach me about, not teachers. It became very uncomfortable and embarrassing for me, and he doesn't mean that in a bad way, it's religious purposes. I was overwhelmed, so my teacher offered to go for a walk in the hallway, but the hallway was covered in LGBTQ+ flags, so there was no safe space for me in that moment, or any way for me to step away from it for even a moment. It doesn't make sense to me because their own rule at VES when we started school was they welcome everyone with open arms, but those arms were closed so tight for me that day. Teachers should teach us about math, science, language arts, but things like riding a bike, my religion, LGBTQ+, and other private things that are personal and close to my heart, I would like to have the opportunity to learn with my parents. And I can tell you that he never said that because he would bully or anyone else, even if it was transgender, LGBTQ+, or anything like that, because that's not what I've taught him. But he did understand that that was a matter that we should have discussed as a family first. And this was our first year back from COVID and our first year in this district. So it was totally out of left field because the district we came from at that young age had never been thrown out there. So I've been here plenty of times, everybody knows where I stand, but I do still stand with the fact that I personally can speak for myself, am not an extremist. I think everybody's fair. I work for this district, and I hope that every administrator that's sitting behind me knows that everything I do in the best faith for my children, and I don't have to, but I do. And I've said that before. Our children are great, our administrators are great, our teachers work very hard, and I think that calling me personally an extremist is a little harsh, and I'm offended that the NJA had the nerve to do that, because all I simply came here was to state I felt it was my right to parent, and I want that back. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not saying who's wrong or right in this. That's besides the point. It's my child, and I want to be able to teach him certain things, and I want that right. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Craig Rothenberg, 46 Catskill Court. I really just wanted to take a minute to thank Fiona Borland for the presentation that she just gave. That was remarkable, and I cannot believe that I'm going to say that was the most concise 90-minute presentation I've ever seen. There was not a breath wasted. I'm not sure you actually breathed, but that was really, really an incredible job. And you know, my kids are just joining this district, and you always hear about the Montgomery school system, and to see the work that your team put in to compile this and put this together really gives me a better understanding of why this district is so highly acclaimed in this state. I think back about my childhood. I grew up in the 90s. You know, in the 90s we kind of thought we were, I mean, I guess everyone thinks they're cool, but like, we thought we had cool music, and we thought we were socially progressive, and all of those things, but we weren't. Kids weren't out in my high school, and I didn't grow up far from here. Boys around town, we insulted each other by calling each other gay. Like, that's just kind of what we did in the 90s, right? Kids weren't comfortable. I think in my generation, I think we were a little more focused on racial inclusion. We read a lot of books like that, and I think as a result, my generation grew up with a very inclusive mentality from that perspective. But a lot of these LGBTQ issues were a little bit more foreign to us, because that stuff wasn't taught. And as we look around now, and that stuff is being taught, we are seeing more kids out at an earlier age, lower incidences of suicide, depression, substance abuse. Those are all remarkable and wonderful things that are being added to the curriculum. I understand there are people's concerns that are so deeply rooted in whether it's moral or religious belief, and those things can't be changed, and that is something that you have every right to feel. That being said, I truly believe that the presentation you gave factored in those feelings. I really think you did hear those people, and when you thought about what you wanted to teach and when you wanted to teach, I think your voices were heard. So I just once again want to congratulate the work that you did, and hopefully...
30 seconds, Mr. Rothman.
I'm done.
Zhang, 26 Aaron McLean. So when I attended the Board of Ed meeting last month, I was honestly a little bit shocked. I knew that there would be a lot of queerphobia. I was prepared for it. That is exactly why I wanted to attend. But beyond the fact that the room quickly turned into a bit of a battleground.
Ms. Zhang, speak a little
sorry.
closer to the mic so
Okay.
you can be heard. There we go.
Is this
Start over.
Okay, sounds good.
Sure.
Gotcha. Thank you. When I attended the Board of Ed meeting last month, I was honestly a little bit shocked. I knew there would be a lot of queerphobia. I was prepared for it, and that is exactly why I wanted to attend the meeting. But beyond the fact that the room quickly turned into a battleground, which was not exactly what I pictured for this sort of respectful meeting, I was not prepared for all of the dismissal that occurred to a lot of students like myself in attendance. As kids and as teenagers, we are very familiar to being overlooked simply because we are young. But no matter how concerned parents are about the quote-unquote indoctrination and quote-unquote corruption of their children, it is not the parents who will be impacted by this new inclusive curriculum the most, but us students. We are the ones who grew up in an environment where queerness often wasn't even acknowledged, not pushed upon us, mind you, but acknowledged as something that exists. It's not about force, it's just existence. And as a result, some of us grow up full of self-hatred because of an identity that we were raised to ignore and suppress. Some of us, like myself, grow up mindlessly perpetuating misguided, uninformed bigotry that hurts others, and we don't even get the chance to question what we were indoctrinated with. And some of us grow up plain confused. We are the ones affected by decisions made in this room. This isn't just about the adults. Sure, we're not perfect, we make mistakes, but just like adults, we still deserve to be listened to. And we don't always seem like it, I'm sure, but we can and do have valuable input, especially when it comes to our experiences and the realities of life that we uniquely witness. And it's not just about queerness, it's about everything. Board of Ed meetings need to be a place where students like myself can talk about their experiences within the school system so that it can be made better. Listen to your students, please, and listen to your kids. You can't put a fire out if you don't acknowledge that it is already burning. But the reality is that right now, Board of Ed meetings aren't always a safe place for students. Not when queerphobic language is thrown around with reckless abandon, when queer kids are casually told that they are broken or diseased. It's scary for a kid to walk into a room full of adults and talk under any circumstances. It's terrifying when adults in the room talk about them as if they don't even deserve to exist. Students need to be able to express their thoughts, but it is the job of the parents and the adults in the room and the board itself to make space for them to speak, and more importantly, to listen. We are very thankful for the space you've already made thus far, and we hope that you continue to do so in the future. By the end of this week, I will be in a different state attending college and no longer able to come to these meetings as much as I would love to. But the queer kids and allies and students who still need your support will still exist. Your support will still be needed, even if less students are able to be here and ask for it. Remember, the people who cannot come to the meetings and cannot speak out in favor of inclusion and equity because of queerphobic people and because of queerphobic rhetoric are precisely the people who need it the very most. Thank you.
Ari Mandas, 6 Bar B Circle. Hello everyone, I'm Ari Mandas, and I'd like to address a few issues, mainly around how it's absolutely necessary to have your gender and sexual identity affirmed as an adolescent, and mainly in order to grow up as a healthy and functioning adult. Now, I, unlike some of my peers over here, have never attended a Board of Education meeting, so I can't necessarily speak about things that have happened in past meetings. However, I am a student in Montgomery High School, so I'm able to speak about events that can have happened and could happen. Before, I'd like to say one thing that I think that my friend Melanie mentioned. Students should be listened to. Every student in this room, and regardless, will eventually become an adult.
Samantha, just remember to keep your head pointed in the direction of the chair, not the audience. You can speak directly to the board president.
All right, sorry about that. Every student here will eventually become an adult, and adulthood is not far away for some of us. The student voices you hear today will eventually be the voices of adults. The points, the grievances, and the statements overall made by our peers might help some people understand a thing or two perhaps better than previously known or at all. Now on to the main point. Sexual identity is something that adolescents struggle with when they hit high school, kind of before or after. It's the time when who likes who and who doesn't, and who identifies as what really comes into play. The decisions made here impact and shape the rest of our lives through and through. To block off a student's path to self-exploration, whether out of ignorance or intent, could seriously stunt their physical and mental health. The lack of LGBTQ representation in our schools is a large issue often talked about, and it's a large issue I see here in Monty. I'm not saying that there's no LGBTQ representation, but I'm saying that there is a lack of it. In health classes I'm seeing in this new curriculum, there's this curriculum, I've got to say, is really amazing. There's a lot of things here that I felt the need for when I previously wrote this speech. I talked about them and I saw those outlined today, and I was really happy to see that. But overall, we went over STIs, safe sex, and things like that, which are very important. However, we did not go over anything regarding sexual identity, so like I said, I'm really happy to see that. According to the CDC, 15.6% of students are LGBTQ+. So we need to be taking more steps throughout our curriculum to kind of encourage, 15.6.
Ari, 30 seconds.
To educate our fellow students more about that. Overall, we need to help people acknowledge that being bisexual, trans, gay, or any other sexual or gender orientation isn't something that is whispered about here and there. It's something that people are, and it is an essential.
Thank you, Ari. Thank you.
So I was very pleased to hear about how responsible the curriculum writer is.
Closer to the microphone, Ms. Felix, so we can hear you.
Yeah, that's better. It's like Verizon. So I'm here today I'm very happy to hear that the curriculum writer took it very seriously to write a curriculum that raises a lot of concerns for the parents, and I'm pleased that whatever we saw is very sterile. It's very medical, but I would like to understand and be assured that this is how that curriculum will be truly enforced. And the reason why I have a concern about what the implementation would look like is examples of what has been happening last year at Village. So the parents that we connected with throughout the community, they have been communicating and sharing stories that are very concerning about what education at Village is doing to their kids. So throughout June, as part of the Pride Month, every morning there was a morning announcement, and the resources that were used that came from the database of the resources apparently approved by the state and Montgomery, they have been basically teaching our kids that they can be whoever they want, they can do whatever they want, they don't have to listen to adults, they don't have to listen to their parents. Well, this is not the type of message that we want to teach our kids. So what happened as a result of that continuous messaging throughout June? Well, we were told, and I'm not sure if you're aware, probably you are, at the Village cafeteria, kids one day decided that they want more food. And when they were told no, they basically went and they stole food in the cafeteria. And they became so unruly, and they said that, well, we were told that we can do whatever we want. So the cafeteria had to be closed. The teachers, and the staff couldn't get control over the students. And that was a direct correlation
30 seconds, Ms. Fila.
and result of the teaching that was basically done at Village. So now my question is, are we raising kids that respect the law and they will grow up to be law-abiding citizens? Or are we raising criminals who, when they grow up, they will know that there are no rules, so they can go and rob local businesses? This is my concern, that whatever we see on paper...
Time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vila.
I'm going into 8th grade at UMS. I am here to speak in support of the LGBTQ+ inclusive curriculum. Middle school tends to be harder to navigate when you're still trying to figure out what's going on inside your own brain. This can be true of all kinds of things, including sexuality and gender identity. Middle school is confusing, and kids start to worry about the pressure to fit in and conform. At the same time, middle school is where kids start dealing with crushes and relationships, and what if they don't fit in because of it? Middle schoolers can have a hard time accepting other people for who they are. They might have learned from their parents that being a part of the LGBTQ+ community is unacceptable, and they haven't learned to think yet for themselves. This can cause kids this age to be outrightly mean and hurtful, especially to peers who identify as queer. I've seen this happen multiple times, and I know people who have personally suffered because of it. A lot of people have failed to see how this kind of bullying affects students in the LGBTQ+ community. This is partly because we have not learned to be inclusive from a very young age. We need this curriculum to help people see how the LGBTQ+ community has been treated historically and how and why it should stop. We need this curriculum to help all Montgomery students gain knowledge about the LGBTQ+ community. Knowledge about something unknown makes it less scary, and knowledge also leads to compassion and power. I think everyone can agree that middle school is a place that always needs more compassion. Let's support this curriculum and become a better community. Thank you.
Matthew Venkatakrishnan, 14 Vanpel Court. My pronouns are...
Sorry, honey, could you repeat your first name?
Mathangi Venkatakrishnan.
Great, thank you.
My pronouns are they, them, and I'll start now. I have lived in this community for over 7 years and am a graduate student of Montgomery High School. My experiences in going through the majority of the education system in Montgomery, along with my peers, are proof of what going through our current schooling system is like for young LGBTQIA+ folks. And whether you like it or not, we are here to stay. When we consider these changes in our curriculum and what is already present, we have to contemplate what actually prepares students for the diverse population that they will encounter that already exists in every space that they will enter. What I'm hearing from the many speaking here at past meetings has not necessarily placed students' autonomy and needed skill set in mind. We have to place the autonomy of our students and their minds first. One thing has remained constant for all of us in this community. No matter what is censored or stopped in the curriculum or education system, LGBTQ folks do not exist as some mythological idea, but rather as a real, tangible community that has existed for as long as people have. Many of us know who we are as children. Our existence is not somehow inappropriate or disturbing. It is fact. As children grow up with and experiment with who they are, some will choose to identify with this community, and even for those that don't, there needs to be an education system that teaches acceptance and kindness in regards to this process. The people you choose to bring into your life could be LGBTQ. Your children could be LGBTQ, and there is no avoiding that other than to quiet people from accepting themselves for the identity that makes them feel the freest. We can't shun one identity over the other. Thus, we have to allow children to explore their identities, because they will do so as a natural result of their development, and making Montgomery more accepting will allow them to do so safely. In light of what this meeting and curriculum represent, I urge everyone in this room to consider that the best curriculum for young minds is the most diverse and knowledgeable one. It is the curriculum that accurately tells students the realities of the world, including an in-depth understanding of scientifically accurate social education, and how to treat and understand those whose experiences can vastly differ, such as those who experience marginalization on the basis of their sexual and gender orientation. Only through actively creating an environment where everyone feels safe and accepted can we equip young members of this community with a strong self-sense of identity that aids them in any exploration they take. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ryan Walls, 35 Johnson Drive. Today I'd like to go into depth about how acceptance and inclusive sex ed helps to lower LGBTQ suicidality rates and lowers the spread of STIs, among other positive benefits. At the last Board of Education meeting, I was taken aback by the sheer amount of false information being casually thrown around regarding LGBTQ health. One concerned parent suggested that LGBT people were diseases and that gay men were disproportionately affected by testicular and prostate cancer. I don't think I need to even address the underlying bigotry in those statements, but it has occurred to me that many people are just genuinely misinformed and don't know the truth surrounding these topics. For those willing to listen, I'm here to educate. Firstly, people in same-sex relationships are not any more likely to have cancer than heterosexual people. Cancer is not a sexually transmitted disease. Secondly, anyone who is having sex has some risk of getting an STD. It is unfair to act as if only LGBT people can have STDs. The main reason why LGBT people have higher risks of contracting certain STDs has its roots in limited access to sexual health care because of homophobia and bigotry. Rejection, bullying, and discrimination often push LGBTQ youth into deep depressions, which in turn leads to risky behaviors such as engaging in unsafe sex and substance abuse. I know an argument will be made, oh, well just don't do it. But people who make those arguments have clearly never known what it is like to feel like your life has no meaning, or know what it is like to be willing to try anything to feel okay again. The lack of empathy when it comes to LGBT youth spiraling in the aftermath of rejection and bullying is probably the most astonishing and disappointing conclusion from last month's meeting. Culminating in a safe and inclusive environment for LGBT youth and providing them with resources to keep themselves safe as they develop into adults and have natural adult experiences is vital in reducing rates of STD transmission, risky behaviors, rates of mental health issues, and suicidality. According to the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, a comprehensive, scientifically accurate sex education also reduces risk of unplanned teen pregnancies and unsafe sex practices, as well as informing students about boundaries, how to protect themselves from predators, and how to maintain healthy relationships. In short, such an education benefits all students, not just ones who are most at risk. While this might just seem like a new sex ed program, it will in fact provide many teenagers with hope. It will let them know that they are not alone and not an obscure outlier. I myself have had many friends who have nearly died because of results of bullying at previous schools that did not take as much care in these matters as Montgomery. At its core, this program may be the first genuine beacon of compassion many teenagers experience, and that is why it is so crucial to any school's health curriculum. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Kristen Kiddo at 35 Johnson Drive. I must say I didn't have any prepared comments for this evening, but I do have to say my son is in the audience and today's his 18th birthday. And I want to commend him and all of the other students that spoke today for really centering their voices in their conversations where often they don't feel heard. And I truly believe you really need a student-centered focus to really understand how to move forward this curriculum. I also speak as a parent with a wide range of age ranges throughout Montgomery. I have a preschooler, a first grader, a middle schooler, and a high schooler in this system. And yes, a lot, I know. But I must say, I want to commend the board and the teachers and everyone here in support of this curriculum, because I, for one, am someone who's very excited to have my first grader experience this. So thank you again to the students and to the board, and keep doing this great work that you're doing.
Board members. I first want to thank Ms. Borland for the presentation, very comprehensive, and I appreciate all the work that you have done.
Excuse me, could you state your name and your address, please?
My name is Hassan Kanaman, 14 Livingston Drive in Belmont. Many of the speakers today are talking about LGBT and LGBT acceptance. I just want to be clear, we are here to talk about the sex ed curriculum. Many of the parents here are not against the LGBT community. That should be very, very clear. We're here because we are concerned parents, especially when the district wants to teach sex education to our young children. I do not want to dilute the topic by having all these speakers come and say how there's many bigots that don't accept the LGBT community, which is false. They're trying to portray concerned parents as bigots, as people that don't care about them, that don't accept them. Let me just be very, very clear. We are here and we accept and we love the fact that the district has a diverse and inclusive program. This is not opposing diversity and inclusion program. This is opposing the sex ed curriculum and standards that are being taught to younger children. Again, and I said it last month, it's clear that high school students should get sex education. But young children, age 7, 6, 8, 9, do not need to know about specific topics that they cannot comprehend in their current development. I heard one parent talk about how their child was feeling bullied, feeling intimidated, feeling a social pressure to conform. How are you going to treat these situations? When parents will opt out, some children will feel left out. How are you going to treat this? Are you favoring the inclusion of some communities while excluding others of children of people of faith? Are you going to allow some children to feel bullied and excluded while including others? Are we creating a two-standard system? I'm here because I want to protect my children, because I want to teach them these controversial topics that many parents may agree with and many parents may not agree with. I do have a belief system.
30 seconds remain.
Thank you. I do have a belief system, and I would like to ask the school district to respect that, we want to teach all our children these sex education topics. We want to teach them in a way that suits our belief system, our faith system, and I would like to make sure that all of these speakers include me and include my family when they talk, because it all seems to be about one certain group while excluding everybody else. Thank you.
I spent a few hours yesterday reviewing past Board of Education meetings, and the amount of blatantly false information disseminated by many of the speakers is disturbing, dangerous, and I believe motivated not by true concern for children, but by an anti-diversity, anti-inclusion, and homophobic agenda. Indeed, we heard one student tonight tell us how she felt bullied by the anti-LGBTQ rhetoric at the last meeting. The loudest cheers at the June 14th meeting followed the statement, and I quote, "Strange adults talking to any underage child about sexuality is grooming." The speaker made sure to twice mention that teachers were included in this strange adult category. A recent Washington Post article reported the term groomer has become a catch-all epithet hurled by the right wing against the left, particularly against advocates for LGBT people, who have become the target of a recent surge in violent threats and attacks. The claim that comprehensive sex ed amounts to grooming has simmered on the right for decades, often fanned by Christian conservatives who disapprove of same-sex relationships and favor homeschooling and private schools over public education. The Post further states both the American Medical Association and American Academy of Pediatrics both back a comprehensive approach to sex ed that includes discussions of sexual orientation, contraception, and consent. Leading child abuse experts say that arming children with information helps protect them against harm. I believe their primary concern is not the children, at least not all the children. One speaker, a current candidate for school board, stated that in terms of decreasing potential suicides in LGBTQ youth through education acceptance, quote, "We are talking about a very small percentage of our community," unquote, as though those kids who might be helped by education acceptance were not really worth helping. There's just not enough of them. Another speaker stated that 5 residents have been attending meetings since last summer and expressing their concerns. These 5 have obviously recruited others to their cause. According to the 2020 census, there are approximately 14,000 people of voting age in this township. 5 people is 0.035%. That's not even a rounding error. That's not high enough to count as a rounding error, and these folks are not representative of our township. Please do not be deceived by their "it's about the children" rhetoric. The state of New Jersey allows these parents to opt out. This is not about protecting their own children. It is about preventing other people's children from receiving an education which prioritizes the full acceptance and equal treatment of all people.
Qasim Zevi, 258 Possum Road. First of all, I want to begin by thanking the board and Ms. Borland and the curriculum community for building a relatively robust curriculum and presenting it to us. I think, well, while I don't have prepared remarks and I only have 2 minutes, which is great, because otherwise I'll ramble, I think the point here is, you know, I hear a lot of concerns about, you know, the LGBTQ identity and diversity and inclusion component, which I think is extremely well received by the broader community in Montgomery. I think the challenge, as one person clearly articulated, is more about, do all families feel that within their faith tradition, it's appropriate to teach topics of sexual identity or you know, the sex ed curriculum at very early ages, right? Like, again, I'm a parent of a child who is going to be entering DES, and I want her to learn about inclusivity, diversity, because in the broadest sense, because I think as a minority, she is going to be on the positive receiving end of a more inclusive community, right? However, I don't want her at this young age to ask me questions about sexual education that I am not yet comfortable having the discussion with her on. And then I think one person clearly articulated that, you know, yes, I want her to be aware when she's age appropriate, but I don't want to explain the deeply nuanced faith traditions of my faith, right, which is an extremely inclusive faith, by the way, on why we believe what we believe. Because I don't think she's going to be, I mean, she won't be ready for that discussion in the 4th grade or potentially the 5th grade. So I think, and I know I have 30 seconds, you're about to announce that for me. I think the point here is for my faith system, how do we ensure that, you know, her diverse background, her faith system is being respected, and that she is not feeling like she's left out, right? And I think that's really the only point that's important and needs to be considered. And again, thank you for having this meeting. Appreciate it.
All right, public comment is closed at this time. We will continue on with our public meeting agenda. Thank you all for your questions and comments. So Superintendent McLaughlin, I think you maintain a list of questions I wish to respond to. Ms. Borland, would you please?
You have questions?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Approach the microphone at this time so that the public can hear you. As you and Superintendent McLaughlin attempts to respond to some questions.
Excuse me, I wanted to speak before you close the comment. Is there a certain period of time frame that we have?
Yeah, it's closed.
Yeah. We didn't see anybody in the queue, so we closed the public comment.
I'd like to speak because there's not a line, people are coming in from this or that way. I was waiting to not be rude.
Is it not an agenda item? Yeah.
I just want 3 minutes.
Are there other, besides this gentleman, are there other individuals that would like to speak? If you could please get in a line so we know who will be speaking.
The line will be here,
So
folks.
we know when to end the public comment, please. Thank you.
So I see the gentleman here at the podium and 2 others, is that correct? Okay, so gentlemen, at the end here is the end of public comment, unless you have some. Thank you, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Adam Gettinger, 1378 206 Gilman. All right, came to talk initially about my son. I have 3 kids, middle school and kindergarten and high school. All right, so I'll start off with my kindergartner. He can't read. I had to find this out on my own, not because it was brought to my attention. When I called the school and I asked them, hey, what's going on? They said to me, oh, well, he's supposed to be recommended for a summer reading program. I said, really? Because nobody's reached out to me. So after talking to Orchard Hill, we arranged roughly about 8 hours of tutoring for him. Now, how does 8 hours make up for the whole school year? Which, hey, they only go half day, right? So there's a problem. I had to fit that in basically 2 weeks. That is wildly unacceptable. Okay? We moved here because of the education. And that's not what we're finding currently. Okay? The remediation should be at my cost. How should that come out? Because now he's left behind. So let's talk about lesson plans. Are we going to be able to get those lesson plans that are coming up? Because I'd like to get lessons plans. Because we have the curriculum, that's great, but what's taught on the day-to-day basis, what I need to know. Because obviously somebody dropped the ball here, and he was being put into first grade without issue. Okay. You brought up masturbation. Is that going to be in the required reading in the upper grades? The other question I have is Hilltop. What input did they have on the lower grades? As far as, let's talk about LGBT community here, because it seems that if you say anything against them or around them or anything, that you're against them. So let me tell you about myself, okay? I'm not the whitest guy in this room, and I've traveled the world, and my colleague was pretty damn gay. And I, by association, was gay, and I never refuted that. And you can't imagine the death threats that I got in other parts of the country. So for you to villainize somebody else because they don't want the sex education to their kids, that's garbage. Okay?
Mr. Gettinger, remember to
Sorry.
address the board president.
That's garbage, okay? I don't care what skin color you are, I don't care where the hell you come from. And I talked to the assistant superintendent, I tell, in my family, you don't know what anybody is. We treat everybody with kindness and respect, unless they don't treat you with that. So anything less than that is unacceptable. And to villainize the other group or the other party is wrong. It doesn't lead to helping anybody. I want the education for my kids, priority. If you left them behind in reading, what other sex education material are you going to leave behind? Is it going to be left behind? Is it going to be asked questions? There's a lot to be said. I bow my time. Thank you.
Learn how to paper up here.
Good evening. Paul Vecchione, 6 Matthews Farm Road, Bellevue, New Jersey. So I obviously have spoken here before at different meetings, and this topic is a very polarizing one. I now know we have a curriculum out there, which with each curriculum, there'll be interpretation and lesson plans. I'm assuming that through the last 5 or 6, 7 meetings, that a number of people are going to opt out of this curriculum. I would expect that to happen. I would hope it would happen in some cases. The question I ask is, I guess a couple things. At each school, there was, will the principal give us advance notice, or the teacher give advance notice of the various lesson plans pertaining to these topics, with enough time to opt out, if it's appropriate, and then when a child does opt out, they're just not stuck in the library to say go do self-study, but maybe we tutor them in math or reading or something like that, where some of these other issues that were brought up this evening about a child going into first grade that can't read, maybe we can address some of these things. So it's, again, instead of sticking a child in a room, let's teach them if it's a topic that a parent wants to opt out on. But I think we need to clarify what opting out is going to look like, and then what those alternatives are when that does occur. And that there's enough advance notice for each marking period where these things are going to be taught. So when I looked online, it was kind of blocking out different periods of time, but it doesn't tell me a whole lot there. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mr.
Hi, my name is Manju. I'm from 426 Birmingham Road, Delhi. I have a son who is going to 8th grade and 10th grade. My concern is not about anything about the sexual education. At this age, I don't think they have to know about it, because being a parent and a mother, and I have, like my husband can teach them. And my fear is, will he be distracted from the studies? He's here to study, not to learn about the sex or the abortions. So those are my concerns. So how can I avoid? I know this is the main topic is going on, but I'm like looking forward for opting out of this lesson. That's all my concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gabriel Zerva, Township Line Road.
So first of all, I'm here to say that I'm one of the parents that keep coming here and talking about sex ed and inquiring about what grade is being taught what. And I am not a bigot because I care about my child's education, and I am not anti-LGBTQ. And you don't really know me, and I would appreciate if everybody stopped calling us this. But I'm also here to present this to the board. So this is from NJEA, Center of Honesty in Education. They claim to aim to combat disinformation, regressive policies, and dangerous rhetorics in local school districts by giving leaders the tools necessary to discredit bad actors who seek to politicize our public schools. They actually have the form on their website to identify issues and to name people. So I am here to let you know about this, because these members are also our teachers and perhaps even board members, I don't know. So I would like to know why they're keeping this list, where it's going to be. Are you letting our teachers use their position to report these parents or taxpayers to this organization? Thank you.
Public comment is now officially closed at this time. Ms. Borland, thank you for your patience and waiting. So I know that both of you maintained a list of questions by which to respond to, as we assured the public that we would do.
Ms. McLaughlin, are you asking questions?
I'm
not sure.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I wasn't trying to rush you. I just...
Okay, so I think the first question is, do we support parents being extremists, or?
Right, Mr. Grant's question.
The answer is, we don't support anyone. We are the governing board of the public school system. More transparency with
High Tops. We had High Tops present. Ms. Borland also discussed the role that High Tops has in professional development and providing resources for our teachers who are, we want to make it a more inclusive environment, and they seeked and sought, can you please help us with the language to use in the classrooms to give a safe space for all. There was another comment about adult level content. As Ms. Borland shared, there is very age appropriate content in every single grade level and grade band. We were asked if students with disabilities are less important than the LGBTQIA+ community, and of course not. All students are included. If somebody has an individual instance or circumstance, I implore you to reach out to your case manager, your building principal, or even me personally to discuss any situation that has ever occurred with your children.
Mrs. McLaughlin, can I add a question? Can I add a piece of information to that response? Would that be okay? I want, in many of the conversations, it has been highlighted that much of the health curriculum relates to, not much, pieces of the health curriculum relate to the LGBTQ community. And other questions have been brought up about diversity and valuing other people groups. And when I started the presentation, I made an explanation about two ways that content gets into the standards. One is by the state adopting standards or content gets into the classroom, and the other is by legislation. So there is legislation that is actually partnered with, it happens by happenstance to be partnered with the LGBTQ community. The law is LGBTQ and the Peoples with Disabilities Act. That goes along with our American Asian Pacific Islanders Act. It goes along with the Holocaust Act, the Amistad Act, and our Diversity Act. There's multiple legislation that requires, as curriculum director, as curriculum supervisors, as a school board, that our curriculum highlights and promotes the contributions, political, economic, history of all people groups. So this was a presentation of health curriculum, but to the value of various people groups in our curriculum. It is something that we strive for actively every day. We are constantly seeking new lessons, new lesson resources, new materials written by people, demonstrating people, and really promoting the history of all people group. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I just want to clarify the incident shared about the cafeteria at Village Elementary School has been confirmed to not be true. Next, we have we are not creating a two-standard system. All, as Fiona just said, all people are in the curriculum. All aspects of their lives are in the curriculum, and all are included throughout the spiraling of all the curriculum, not just in the health and PE curriculum. So there was a question about early literacy and why remediation is left to the cost of the parent. Again, if you have a specific concern about your child, I don't want to speak publicly about individual students, please reach out to the school, to the case manager, and get the full picture, and I'll have them share it back with me, and we'll see what we can do to come to some resolve for you. Right, there was another question regarding certain terms and that are not being taught. If you look at the curriculum that was released today, you will see that that is not being taught in the curriculum, as well as, again, Ms. Borland explained in detail the relationship the district has with High Tops. Right, around professional development for staff. So there are certain lessons that parents will get a letter regarding. I believe the 4th grade puberty is the first time that you will get the letter, but for the most part, no, you will not get advance notice. The way that the law is written, that you are able to opt out, and the onus is on you. You have to read the curriculum, look at it, and look at your child's schedule, and reach out to the principal for any questions, and they will be able to help you navigate when something will be taught, because as you noted, it's like in a month span, and so the building will be able to help you further with that.
I think that was to add clarification to that. It is a building-based question, and I'm sorry, I don't know the gentleman's name who asked the question about that. Thank you. When you look at the curriculum maps and they show a general band, the truth of the matter is there is a rotation. So you have to know your child's schedule, because 7th graders will have help at a certain time, 8th graders will have it at a different time, some 4th grade classes will have it at this month, and then others might have it at this month. So even though we kind of show a general band, it is a very specific building-based and student-based schedule. So what we've done is tried to make sure that the curriculum, not tried, what we have done is release the curriculum in detail prior to the beginning of the school year, but they will have to seek their own child's schedule to locate when their child actually will participate in health this year. And because health is not a year-long program, it is student and school specific.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Yeah. But it sounds like you've also said that parents should be talking to the teachers that are involved in the topic, and they can talk about the individual schedule, the individual concerns, what does it mean in a particular grade, in a particular class, etc. And so, we're not going to be defining those things tonight, but we encourage people to talk with their teachers about this. And also, there was the question about why aren't we teaching math and science and reading and writing? And my guess is you'll say that we do teach those things.
Yeah, I promise you we do teach those things.
But
I will,
sorry. There was a context with that inquiry. It was around the activities that the students would be participating in if the family chooses to opt out. That was the context.
No, there was the context earlier where that was more broad than that.
Mr. Speck, I would like to respond in this moment to just take a moment to point out that at some point, most of the educators in this room, we are young people going to college, and we're seeking out a major. And we all sit around and we think, well, we don't all sit around, we think about what do we want to grow up and be. And somebody in here, like Mr. Sullivan, who's not with us, he grew up and said, I want to be a science person, right? And somebody else, Mrs. Riddell, grew up and said, I want to be a math person. And I grew up and said, I want to teach middle grades. Like, that was my passion. The people teaching our courses, they went to school because their passion is health and wellness, and they focused on that in their education. So I just really want to be confident and instill the confidence. The very best thing that a parent can do is talk to people who made a selection to make health and wellness their profession, because those are the best people to help them figure out the choice that they should make for their child.
Thank you. Did you, Jack? Did we address all of the questions from the public at this time? Okay, great.
There's one more. There's one about what will the alternatives be provided. And we had asked that as a board before, and I think that, again, it's a building-based. I think that's going to be
right. We're not able to provide specificity to that question tonight, but we encourage the parents to reach out to the principals, as Ms. Borla included in her presentation, because it will vary from school to school, largely because of the variation in the master schedule.
But I do believe, yes. I'm sorry, I do believe an example of that. I mean, this health and education is taught in what we used to call PE class, right? So all of this stuff is being taught in PE, right? So understand that likelihood is you will probably go to another PE class. I mean, that's a possibility that you would rather. I mean, it's not going to be a time for tutoring. It's going to be probably
perhaps in the upper grades, yes. But in the lower grades, it can be different. Right.
It might be, I mean, since it's PE, you'll probably just go to another section of PE
It is a definite possibility during that
So
time.
you're not going to feel
Possibility for
excluded,
members,
you
yes.
will be with other students, it won't be, I mean, you're not going to be treated poorly.
Right, and then that is not a possibility, I'm confident that every principal is going to find something meaningful for their children to do during that time.
Now, I had asked a question, I'm sorry. I'd asked a question specifically. I said, will masturbation be taught? And you said, absolutely not. And then somebody said, masturbation is going to be taught. So I want you to say once again that masturbation won't be taught. So we can hear
I want to clarify, my response of any sort of humor is not that I don't take the topic seriously. I have stretched my own comfort level in the vocabulary that I have become incredibly comfortable saying publicly, and so I will once again say that masturbation is not included in our current curriculum in Montgomery.
Right. Not only is masturbation at any grade level, it will not be taught. As well, High Tops has not played any role in our curriculum development. They play zero role in our lesson delivery. And as Ms. Borland communicated as part of her presentation, the contracted services with the Montgomery Township School District and High Tops include providing professional development for our staffing. And that is the extent to which the contract has been extended at this time. Board Member Speck.
The subject of bullying came up a number of times, both in terms of a variety of people being bullied in various ways. There was concern about students who decide to, their parents decide to opt out. Will they be ostracized or bullied or anything else? Can we just say that the district does not support bullying of any type in any way, and that there are specific ways of dealing through the harassment, intimidation, and bullying policies and other things to say that the district doesn't support bullying, and if we're aware of it, we will take action. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. And we support the rights of parents. And parents have the right to make their choices for their families, and we respect that. We respect everyone's religion and their beliefs. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So that'll conclude our responses to the
I'm
questions
sorry.
presented in public comment. Board Member Berge,
Yes, I know, I'm sorry.
It's a late hour,
I
baby
know.
girl.
I do want to quickly say.
We have more agenda items to address, so
A lot of
please
people
be
have-
brief.
I
As
want to say
Shakespeare
that-
has informed us.
Right. That-
Brevity is a virtue.
And I don't have that, I apologize. But a lot of people talked tonight in response to the negative things that were said about LGBTQ people last meeting. It is not a reflection on individuals who spoke tonight. Nobody was saying that they are anti-LGBTQ. And I started to get a feeling that people were getting angry about this. That was not what was happening. This was just a reflection on the anti-stuff that was said last time. I also want to say specifically, because it keeps coming up, this is not a board agenda. We are a board, a school board, that is following what we have been told or mandated to teach and create in the curriculum. It is not our nasty agenda to do these things to you, right? And it is not, we are not friends, or I don't want to say friends, but we are not being controlled by the NEA. Neither is the MTEA, right? And there are also other groups that are on the web that are telling people how to behave in the opposite direction as the NEA is. So I just want to say that I understand people are fearful, right? We understand that, right? Well, and I also want to say there are 9 people, they're not all here. We all have different views, but we all care, right? And we are all trying to figure out how to work through this together. So understand, I don't want to say we aren't the people.
Thank you, Board Member
All right,
Berge.
I'll shut up.
We're now going to transition to the part of our agenda with our committee and representative reports, starting with Mr. Jim Dolan, the MTEA president, Mr. Max Rodriguez, a VES 4th grade teacher, and looks as if there's one other individual, Stacy
Stacey Anderson.
Anderson.
All right.
Oh, yes, Stacy Anderson. Yeah, okay.
Good evening, board.
I'm used to it.
I'll do my best to be
brief. I know it's a late night tonight, but I do appreciate your attention and time always. I do want to thank Ms. Fiona Borland. I feel like, you know, if I give any more accolades, I will have to give a little trophy or something up here. But I do want to thank her for the wonderful presentation tonight, for the Health PE curriculum, and all of our staff that have worked on that curriculum with her to put it together. I also want to thank my fellow MTEA Association members for coming out tonight, who are here in the audience or watching virtually on the live stream, who are able to hear that presentation firsthand. I can say with confidence that every content area, including health and PE, will be taught and delivered with the utmost professionalism, like it is all the time, every year, and we will continue to support every child and family. I'd also like to thank Madam President Spence Wallace for setting the tone this evening when you initially started the meeting, which was a long time ago. And I think it's worked, because obviously there's been some concerns at previous meetings. So thank you for taking the time to address that. I believe it's very important. And I continually to be impressed by our students. All I can do is when they come up is smile, because I know we've done a fantastic job, and I'm just continually proud of them, whether it be a topic here tonight or when they've come to speak in other meetings as well. So really all I can do is smile. So thank you for making it a priority and coming out. With all that being said, I have reflected on the past few board meetings and the conduct that I've witnessed, and everyone else who has witnessed that same conduct, whether you be in person, whether you have watched the live stream, or whether you watched the recording. We all want to hear different perspectives and different opinions. That's one of the cornerstones of democracy. For those not attending in person for the last few meetings, you may have missed some of the comments that were made under the breath of some of the people who attended. They were disrespectful, they were inappropriate, and some were downright disgusting. So that's why, Madam President, I'm so glad that we are taking steps to address this for people who attend. Some of them were directed at board members, some were directed at students, and some were directed at anyone that had a difference of opinion. This is not the community that I know to recognize and have taught here for 20 years. And I refuse to accept that that's going to be the community by a few members, because this is the place that I love to teach for the past 20 years. We can all benefit from hearing different perspectives and viewpoints, but we can't pretend to take some type of moral high ground when we demean and belittle others, or even individuals or groups. So I'm so glad that tonight has gone much better, and I appreciate all the efforts that go into that. For the rest of my time, I'm turning it over to Max Rodriguez, who is our equity chair of the Montgomery Township Education Association.
Good evening, Madam President Spence Wallace, board members, Superintendent McLaughlin, and everyone present here tonight, and everyone watching on live stream. For those who don't know me, my name is Max Rodriguez. I've been a fourth grade teacher here for 28 years, starting in September, and I'm the equity chairperson for the third year in a row in September. So I've been busy. The purpose of me speaking tonight is to address a false narrative that originated back in June of this year. This one story accuses our local association, our union president, and me as being deceptive and subversive regarding one union event, Drag Queen Story Hour. The account told on record provides the community with little to no detail on the reason why particular actions were taken on behalf of our equity committee. Several months ago, 3 MTA equity committee members, myself included, along with our MTA Pride Chair, discussed having Ms. Harmonica Sunbeam, the regional leader of Drag Queen Story Hour, visit Montgomery. We first learned about Harmonica Sunbeam through trustworthy channels, one being the NJA Pride and Fast Program Coordinators Network, as well as 3 fellow NJA Pride chairs. Each of these Pride chairs had Ms. Sunbeam come to events that they hosted, one being at the county level. Once our team, or MTA team, reserved the dates and times for Harmonica Sunbeam to visit, in person on June 13th at 6:30 p.m. and virtually on June 14th at 5 p.m., the group began to prepare for both sessions, starting with the registration form. In order for a family to attend Drag Queen Story Hour, either in person or online, a caregiver had to fill out the following required fields. 1, the name of the family member that was attending along with their email address. The name of a child. The child's elementary school, and the options were either OHES or VES. And if the child was coming to the virtual read aloud, the name of the classroom teacher was necessary in order for the craft as well as the book being sent home prior to the virtual read aloud. At the bottom of the registration form, one would also find a NewJersey.com article on harmonica's accomplishments, along with a video interview conducted by Father Lee website. After the Equity Committee checked all of the RSVPs multiple times, we found a major discrepancy, which resulted in one cancellation. This one registration form was not completed as directed. We did send a message indicating the reason for the cancellation. And the reason was the event was for families with elementary age students attending either VES or OHES. After receiving our message, the person still comes to the venue and proceeds to the check-in table alone, meaning no child. MTA volunteers at the sign-in table reminded the individual once again that the event was meant for families with children that attend either VES or OHES. The story that we keep hearing proceeds to a scene where there is a negotiating with a police officer. The police officer said that the individual may attend the Zoom read aloud, but I was not part of that conversation, nor any other committee member. I only knew about this dialogue with the police officer at the June 14th Board of Ed meeting. Additionally, the name of the officer was not mentioned, so there was no way to verify this one conversation. But I would like to go back to the fact that there was a police officer at VES. Actually, there were about 4 police officers and a security officer at the in-person read aloud. On the morning of the 13th, the day of the read aloud in person, the committee was informed of a social media post regarding our Drag Queen Story Hour. An unfamiliar person encouraged protesting at the in-person event and stated the following, and I quote, "Time to video them and run them through my form of punishment by mentally, emotionally, and financially stripping the evil of their rights. They deserve to be put down like dogs." I'm going to let everyone sit with that last statement. They deserve to be put down like dogs. It's interesting that the given narrative does not include joining protesters across the street. It's interesting that the narrative does not include those protesters holding up inappropriate signage. It's interesting that the story does not include protesters shouting a number of discriminatory statements, foul language, and unchristian comments in the direction of families with young children, district guests, MTA volunteers, and equity committee members. It's also interesting that the story does not include one protester shouting to a volunteer, "Get cancer and die," and then an obscenity. Friends, despite the extreme darkness exhibited outside the VES venue, on social media, and through a false narrative about our organization, our president, and me, Drag Queen Story Hour was indeed a huge success. Harmonica reminded us of the importance of truly celebrating our differences, being proud of who we are, and taking care of one another. As you can see, our MTA takes seriously the physical, the social, and the emotional well-being of all students, all families, and all staff members. Because of our commitment to the Montgomery School District, to the Montgomery community, and to our entire membership, in no way were we the deceptive ones or subversive. This summer, one of our association's book clubs focused on Sarah McBride's memoir, Tomorrow Will Be Different. The transgender assemblywoman from Delaware provides us with the life lesson. None of us know how long we have, but we do have a choice in whether we love or hate. And every day that we rob people of the ability to live their lives to the fullest, we are undermining the most precious gift we are given as humans. Each time we ask anyone, whether they're transgender, Black, an immigrant, Muslim, Native American, gay, or a woman, just to sit by and let an extended conversation take place about whether they deserve to be respected and affirmed in who they are, we're asking people to watch their long life pass by without dignity or fairness. That is too much to ask of anyone. With that being said, the Montgomery Township Education Association chooses love. The NTA looks forward to another great school year where every student, every family, and every staff member is acknowledged, celebrated, and respected. Happy almost new school year.
Delegate reports will begin now.
So I have a quick couple of comments about the Somerset County Educational Services Commission report. I was a meeting I went to on August 3rd. For those who don't know, the ESC provides shared services to districts, and our ESC has alternative programs for certain students. Provides vocational training for students that aren't able to go to the VOTEC school. And it was interesting actually touring their school and seeing some of the programs that they have. If any of the board members are interested in more details, I'd be happy to provide that. They even have their own little ShopRite store that students can actually go to that actually work at to learn skills that may help them get jobs. It was also interesting about the way bus transportation is changed by the ESC, and I can also go into more detail about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other board member delegate reports at this time? All right, hearing none, we will move to our board committee reports. The Assessment Curriculum and Instruction Committee did not meet during the month of August, and our ACI meetings will resume during the month of September. So our Equity Committee and Anti-Racism and Reform Subcommittee, chaired by Board Member Bursch and Board Member Spina respectively.
I guess I just want to say ditto. to be brief.
No meeting during the month of August. Thank you, Board Member Bursch. Likewise, for ARC, thank you. And at this time, we'll hear from our OFF and PCC. Board Member Spence.
Yeah, so the OFF met on August 12th. Sharish Tiwari, who was the chair of the committee before he resigned from the board, I just want to say that we're going to miss him, his understanding of finances, his understanding and background in being on the OFF committee is an invaluable resource, and he's going to be missed. With that said, we're pleased to announce that Patrick Todd is the new committee chair, and unfortunately he's not here tonight, so I'm giving that report. As typical, we went through the agenda items that are on the agenda. We discussed those in the meeting. You know, if there are questions, we can certainly go over them. There are notes and minutes that the board has received. The annual audit is coming up, and so I wish the business office well in getting all of the reports and things that are necessary to provide the audit. Our audits have always been very clean, and so I'm sure that this one will be too. But
pressure's on.
Yeah, that's right. There also were a large number of facility projects that were conducted over the summer, and I want to commend Mike O'Neill and staff for making those things happen. We had huge numbers of camp programs. We had 60 classrooms used by SOAR, I believe. We had a variety of things that were going on in the district and trying to make...
A wrecking crew.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So trying to schedule around those things were amazing, and they did a good job. There are some things that are still ongoing because of supply chain issues, but those will happen. But I think walking into this building tonight and seeing the floor clean, they get credit for you know, getting things ready. So There was a food service we discussed, and it seems that Mashios is hitting the ground running. The Chartwell's contract had been closed out. There were probably, how many people? 300 plus, I guess. You're going to talk about. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
the PCC, I'll move on to, we also didn't meet, but we did receive a copy of the communications assessment report. The superintendent received that and talked with our consultant. That's been provided to the board members. The PCC committee will be discussing that and getting some recommendations and discussion at our next meeting from the superintendent. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. And on behalf of our second VP, Cookie Franco-Herman, she's the chair of our Human Resources Committee. There were confidential security measures and personnel matters discussed at the August meeting. And finally, our officers report. The Food Services Committee, in collaboration with our new food services vendor, Mashios, held its meet and greet last Wednesday, August 17th, in the Commons area at Montgomery High School. And the event was a huge success. There were over 300, almost 400 persons attending, parents and students. And it was absolutely beautiful to see. There were a variety of actual food options at all of the grade span levels. And I indulged, as well as other board members and the superintendent.
It was a delicious
and
night.
my belly was full at the end of that night. And I don't see her right now, but the board would like to extend our appreciation to Montgomery News for being present and covering the event, and hopefully that will be published in the next month's agenda. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the Food Services Committee, which is chaired by our second VP, Franco-Herman, for all of their efforts. It's been so admirable how they have respected, the process with identification of our new food services vendor. So we hope that the parents and the children will be pleased with their lunches this year. The Special Services Ad Hoc Committee is on hiatus for the summer months, and those meetings will resume in September like ACI. Meanwhile, the early literacy public presentation has been postponed and will take place in September as well. And then finally, the board and the MTEA negotiations teams will continue to meet to reach a settlement agreement. The interest-based bargaining process is tenuous, but both sides have made significant progress over these past 9 months. Emphasis on 9. With one negotiable issue remaining. Our next meeting is unknown at this time, but hopefully will take place within the next week. All right, so thank you. All right, approval of minutes. So it's recommended that we approve these minutes, and the 2 meeting minutes requiring approval are the July 19th, 2022 executive session meeting and business meeting. So I move for the board to approve these 2 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Any opposed or any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay.
I'm assuming
Was
that
there
you need
a
to abstain
shower?
as well.
Yep. That's duly noted.
For the minutes?
Did you attend that meeting?
No, I didn't attend either one of them.
You need to abstain.
But I read the minutes.
Yeah, she's.
I can approve.
She doesn't have to.
Oh, I'm
She
just.
does, it's not required that she abstain. She can submit her vote in favor of board member Bursch.
Rules have
Thank you.
changed, I apologize.
Right.
So it looks like we, all, can you just submit it?
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Any opposed?
I'm sorry, to what?
Any abstentions?
To what?
To the meeting minutes.
Reviewing the motion to the meeting minutes so that the record could reflect the vote.
So Ms. Bursch, I have you as abstaining from the executive session meeting on July 19th and the business meeting on
Yes,
July
and the
19th.
business meeting.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank
I-
you.
Thank
I
you.
do not have personal knowledge of what happened, so I cannot.
That's fine. Thank you very much. So at this time, the board is acknowledging the correspondence to the board. There are 4. So our second public comment, members of the public are allotted 1 opportunity to address the board regarding the action agenda for up to a maximum of 3 minutes. All comments or questions must be directed to the board president. The board president may need to refer the issue to the superintendent if a particular issue has not been handled through the appropriate chain of command within the school district before coming to the board for a response. So, second public comment is now open, specific to the action agenda. Okay, hearing none and seeing no one in the queue, at this time, I move to approve the action agenda items. It's 1.1 to 4.8. Is that correct, Board Secretary?
That is correct.
Okay, roll call, please. Board Secretary.
Ms. Hirsch?
Yes.
Wait, we need a motion first, sorry.
A motion to approve the action agenda items 1.1 to 4.8.
So moved.
Second. Now you say roll call.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Hirsch?
Yes.
Mr. Carlson? Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Speck?
Yes.
Ms. Spina?
Yes.
Ms. Spence-Wallace?
Yes.
Motion passes.
So that motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Whew. We have reached the conclusion of our Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022 public meeting session. Yes,
We need a motion to adjourn.
sincerely.
So
We thank all of you who participated this evening, including the outstanding presentation conducted by our CNI Director, Renee Borland. Announcements at this time include
We ask the
reminding.
public to remain quiet.
Point of
while
order,
we're finishing up.
please. Point of order, thank you. The board's announcements at this time include reminding the public of our town hall scheduled for Thursday, August 25th at the same location, beginning at 5:30 and ending at 7 o'clock. And the topic is specific to the HPE standards, and we look forward to scheduling, so look out in your emails. A town hall during the month of September around full-day kindergarten. We're very excited about that. Okay, so should there be no other objections, I move to adjourn this public meeting at this time.
Yeah, you moved it.
A motion, I want a motion to adjourn this
I need
meeting.
a first and a second.
So moved or second or whatever.
I need a motion. Second. Okay, no, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
We are
Good
adjourned.
night.
Thank you.